Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto has awoken the Rinnegan after releasing a seal that was placed on him at birth. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. It was a calm day above the fire country. The sky was the nicest shade of blue with only a couple of puffy white clouds floating through the sky. A gentle breeze would appear here or there, but the skies were as calm as the two people riding through them. Deidara loved flying. He felt so free with the wind at his back or flying past his face. The sound of his duster cloak flapping in the wind sounded so satisfying. The blonde man also wore a tank top and fishnet shirt with orange sunglasses and black pants. On both sides of his waist were small duffel bags filled with clay that he used for his explosives. Flying was one of the ways he could just forget all of his troubles for a couple of minutes. Sometimes he simply wanted to stop being a ninja and sail through the skies forever. This was something he sorely wished to do, forget his past. Deidara was a new Nin from Awoken. He had been exiled 4 years ago after he was found guilty of blowing up the Tsuchikage Tower, thereby killing the Tsuchikage. Some ninja would think this was a huge accomplishment. But the guilt of killing a leader, even though he was a tyrant, of a ninja village, more importantly his own, weighed heavily upon Deidara's heart. With a sigh of contentment, the 19-year-old Nin glanced at his partner. "Beautiful day for flying, Sasori?" Deidara asked with a smile. The man called Sasori looked at his blonde counterpart and nodded. Sasori was a rather unusual ninja. He looked like a boy in his mid-teens, but he was actually in his late 20s. How he did this, Deidara didn't know. But he was fairly sure that it had something to do with Sasori's Hidokugutsu, human puppet, abilities. Sasori was a puppet master from Sunagakure, and one of the best at that. He had left Suna about 10 years ago, after kidnapping and murdering the Sandaime Kazekage to use as a special puppet. Nobody had known who the kidnapper was, but Sasori's flight had led them to the conclusion that it was indeed him. For years the Suna forces had attempted to capture Sasori. Only 2 attempts were good enough to come close enough to killing him though. Both of the assassination attempts had failed when Sasori was able to pull himself back together after being dismantled. He slaughtered the squads, and then fled. Deidara had witnessed the second attempt from afar, and had been impressed by Sasori's abilities. Some time later, Deidara had confronted Sasori. He had then proposed that they travel together to ensure that they survived the continued assassination attempts made on them. Sasori had only agreed because Deidara was also an art lover. They had been on rocky grounds at first, but after a year of traveling together, they had formed a tight friendship and earned the name the Nagako, 2 artists. While they were close friends, they still often argued about what art was. Deidara claimed that art was transient, something that existed for a brief flash before disappearing from existence. Whereas Sasori believed that fine art was immortal, and was something that was left long in the future. The two had different views on art due to the jutsu that they used. Deidara used clay bombs as his method of attacking. Usually this art tended to not last long. Sasori used puppets made from preserved humans. He could reassemble this art if it were damaged, creating his opinion that art was everlasting. If one who didn't know who these 2 new Nin were and they saw them arguing about art, one would say that they hated each other with a fiery passion. Usually these opinions tended to be wrong. The Nigako were the best of friends, and often dropped the facade of a pair of deadly, murderous new Nin when alone. Their personalities from before they went bad tended to surface when they were together. Ironically, they both acted rather childish at that point, often joking about wrestling and starting food fights. But right now, they had a mission. Deidara was flying them towards Konohagakure no Sato. Their mission wasn't an official one, but rather a goal. The Nigako had been traveling from country to country, intending to learn any jutsus they could. Currently, they had an extensive library of Doton and Futon jutsus, and a decent supply of Suiton jutsu. They had a couple of Riton jutsu, but had absolutely no Katan jutsus. This was precisely why they were traveling to Konoha, to pick up a couple of Katan scrolls and increase their strength. Both of the new Nin smiled as they began to descend as Konoha came into sight. As they approached the walls of the village, Sasori looked down upon the small clearings out of boredom. Nothing interesting was in them. But one of them caught his eye. "Shadow Mat, Deidara. Turn around for a second, there was someone in that clearing back there," Sasori exclaimed. Curiosity piqued, Deidara maneuvered the clay bird they were riding back towards the small clearing. Hovering over it, and quickly touching down, Deidara scanned the clearing. He gasped at what he saw. It was a small boy. He was lying face down in the grass, and his white shirt and gray pants were covered in streaks of dirt and blood. The kid had blonde hair that stuck out at all angles. From what he could see, the kid was covered in bruises and cuts. Deidara was shocked and sickened. Sasori looked disgusted as he bounded over to the boy. He crouched down and laid a finger on the boy's neck. "He's alive," Sasori stated. "Question is, what do we do with him?" the puppet master asked. Deidara looked at his fellow artist like he was stupid. Well, it's kind of obvious, yeah? We take him into Konoha, bring him to the hospital, and steal the scrolls on our way out. Deidara explained. Sasori frowned. Yeah, you see, Deidara, you forget that we're listed as S-class criminals in the bingo book. I really don't think that we would be able to sneak into Konoha without getting caught. If we were found on the way out, I don't think we'd get out alive, even as skilled as we are. Sasori explained. Deidara sighed in defeat. He could only think of one other option, and Sasori would not like it at all. Well, that means that there's only one other option that we have. We take him with us and heal him on our own, yeah? Deidara replied in a firm voice. Sasori's face was hard. Are you kidding me? We can't raise a kid like this. We're highly wanted criminals, and the Oinin that come after us would kill the kid too. I don't care what you think of this, Deidara, but I can't stand to see children slaughtered. Sasori shouted the last part. Deidara was surprised at the outburst from his normally cool teammate, but he intended to keep trying. He also could not stand people who abused children. Well then, why not train him? We could teach him a couple of our tricks so that he could fend for himself when we bring him back or if he gets attacked with us, yeah? Deidara offered. Sasori looked surprised, then disdainful. I don't know how you could teach him anything. You don't use a lot of jutsus, and he doesn't have your Kekkei Genkai. That would leave. Sasori. I will be able to teach him stuff. For your information, my abilities are the result of a few injutsu gone wrong, yeah? I was trying to have a seal put on myself that would give me a place to carry my clay for when I wanted to do some sculpting. But the person that was putting that seal on me screwed up and I got these bomb-molding hands. That's what led me to be a shinobi. Deidara shot back at Sasori. The puppet nin's eyes widened as Deidara told him his story. The clay sculptor turned ninja took advantage of Sasori's silence and pressed on. Now Sasori, there are two options here. 1. We can continue this argument, and eventually you can do things my way, yeah? Deidara said as he removed his sunglasses. Or 2, we can avoid this argument, and you can just say yes right now. He finished. Sasori scowled. Deidara was extremely stubborn, and would not quit until he got what he wanted. Sasori knew he was fighting a losing battle, and he didn't want to see this kid killed or die because of his injuries. He sighed, rattling the equipment on his back. Fine, let's get him out of here. I think I saw a cave nearby, Sasori said as he stood up and picked the little boy up. He jumped back onto Deidara's bird and it took off before Deidara could jump on. Sasori laughed as he watched a pissed Deidara shrink as he flew off. Sasori, you fucktard. Get your shiny, puppet ass back here, Deidara screeched. Sasori just laughed harder. Naruto opened his eyes and tried to sit up. Bad idea. His muscles screamed in protest, even with his accelerated healing factor. He simply laid back and stayed still, waiting to recover. After a moment, he opened his eyes, but they were not greeted by the blue sky of the clearing he had been beaten in. He was instead greeted by the stone ceiling of a cave, with a faint light to his right. His muscles were not as stiff now, and he attempted to sit up again. His muscles were still sore, and he groaned in pain. Oh good, he's awake, yeah? Came a voice. Naruto froze in shock. Had the angry villagers moved him so that they could completely kill him this time? Naruto turned his head slowly and looked for the owner of the voice. He saw two people sitting facing the entrance of the cave, but turned to face him. One of them had a blonde ponytail with a flop of hair covering his left eye. He had a smooth, angular face that was staring at him with a not unkind smirk on his face. He had on a tank top and fishnet shirt combo, covered by a duster cloak with black sweatpants and a set of orange sunglasses. The other one was a teenage boy with flaming red hair. He was wearing a black long-sleeved shirt and sweatpants. He was wearing a huge cloak that appeared to have a small bulge in the back of it. Currently, both of them were staring at him. You feeling okay, kid? Asked the redhead. Naruto shrank back in fear. Please don't hurt me. I didn't do anything, Naruto cried, curling up and shrinking back. The blonde man frowned. Why would we want to hurt you? You haven't done anything wrong, yeah? He said to the boy as he stood up and walked towards him. Naruto began to inch away. The redhead saw the fear in his eyes and got up to accompany the blonde. Stop worrying, kid, we're not going to hurt you. We were the ones who saved you from dying, the redhead said to him, crouching down and looking him in the eyes. Naruto stared into the redhead's eyes, and found not a trace of deceit or malice. Naruto also saw several emotions that he himself kept hidden: sadness, loneliness, depression. Looking at the blonde, he saw several of the same emotions in his own eyes. Who are you two? He asked, with more curiosity than fear in his eyes. The blonde man smiled warmly, and crouched down in front of the little boy. My name is Deidara. Deidara introduced himself, flashing the kid a genuinely happy smile. Naruto hesitantly returned the smile a little bit. And this bucket of bolts over here is Sasori, yeah? Deidara jerked his thumb over and pointed at Sasori, who scowled at his blonde friend. Naruto looked confused. Sasori doesn't look like a machine, Deidara Nizan. What are you talking about? Naruto asked. Deidara's visible eye widened as the kid attached the Nizan suffix to his name. Deidara snickered evilly and yanked Sasori's arm upwards, and unscrewed it. The kid gasped when he saw Sasori's detached metal arm with its flamethrower attachment. His eyes widened in shock, and then admiration. Suga! That is so cool! Naruto yelled, causing Deidara to wince. This kid could probably burst his eardrums if he got any louder. Sasori chuckled as he pulled his sleeve back down. Deidara was scowling as he drilled his finger into his ear. Oh, we never got your name, kid, Sasori said to him, staring resumed. Naruto smiled foxily. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the next Hokage, Naruto proclaimed loudly. Sasori's face was expressionless for a moment, but it split into a huge grin after a second. Deidara mirrored the grin. Well, that's just great, Naruto, yeah? Tell me, do you have any ninja training so far? Deidara asked. Naruto looked downwards a little bit. No, but I can learn quickly. Do you know someone who can teach me? Naruto exclaimed the last part. Sasori and Deidara looked at each other, and back at the little blonde. Well, Naruto, we're highly skilled ninjas, and we'll both be more than willing to teach you some stuff to help you survive from what did happen to you that made you ended up lying about beaten up in the forest. Sasori asked. Deidara had removed his sunglasses and was listening intently. Naruto's happy expression became depressed. It was the villagers. They hate me for some reason, and I don't know why. They call me monster and demon and fox all the time. All the parents tell their kids not to play with me, and the only people who are nice to me are Hokage Ojiji and Tochi Ojiji. Naruto's voice quieted at the last point. Deidara and Sasori's faces looked rather sympathetic, and soon replaced by a cold fury. But it was not directed at Naruto. Sasori looked at Deidara nervously as the blonde began to reach into one of the pouches on his waist. Fast as lightning, the redhead had the raging blonde in a full Nelson. Come on, Sasori, let me go, yeah. Let me just blow up a quarter of Konoha for their crimes. Deidara screamed, flailing about with his eyes burning a demonic red. Naruto shrank back with a sweat drop. Sasori looked at Naruto with a disarming grin. Deidara does this a lot, Naruto, you're gonna have to get used to it. Sasori explained as Deidara calmed down. It was only then that Naruto noticed the mouths in Deidara's palms and became curious. Nah, Deidara-Nizan, what are those mouths in your hands for? Biting people's butts or something? Naruto asked. Deidara looked at him blankly for a second, and then threw back his head and howled with laughter. Sasori joined in after a moment. Ah ha 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 ha, ooh, that was, giggle, funny Naruto, snicker, yeah? I've actually never thought about that. But no, these mouths aren't for that. Here, let me show you what they're for. Deidara said as he reached into the left pouch and pulled out some clay, which he showed to Naruto before consuming it with his hand. He motioned for Naruto to follow him, and the little boy complied. But not without some support from Sasori. Once outside, Deidara had finished with the little clay piece, and his hand spat it out. Deidara turned and opened his hand to show Naruto the small clay spider that he had molded. Naruto's eyes showed fascination as he reached out to touch it. Deidara pulled it away quickly. I wouldn't touch that, Naruto. This little spider is actually a very high-powered explosive, yeah? Deidara explained as he set the small spider down on the ground. It crawled over to a nearby tree that was about 20 feet tall, and latched onto it. Deidara formed a ram seal and called Katsu. The spider exploded spectacularly, completely destroying the tree. Naruto's mouth had fallen open. Deidara grinned at the whisker-faced child. Cool, right? Deidara asked Naruto, who nodded his head so fast that Deidara was sure it would fall from his shoulders. Would you like to learn how to do that? He asked, causing Naruto's eyes to take up half his face. Hell yes! Naruto yelled, jumping up and down. Deidara chuckled at the smaller blonde's antics, and Sasori just smiled. Okay then, kid, we've got to find a place away from Konoha. The process of creating these mouths draws a lot of attention, yeah? The two Nuke-Nin and small boy had stopped in a mountain range near the borders of Earth Country. It was up on a plateau between a trinity of mountains that Deidara was riding seals all along Naruto's arms. Deidara-Nizan, what are you riding on my arm? Naruto asked as he tried to restrain himself from giggling. That paintbrush tickled. Well, Naruto, these are seals. They are a special type of jutsu that can allow you to do many things, yeah? One of the more common uses is sealing things in scrolls. There are some other seals that can stop a person's chakra flow, and a couple of other types. Deidara said as he finished the seals on Naruto's arms. You done yet, Sasori? Deidara asked his puppet master friend, who was drawing a large circle around the two blondes. I'm done, Deidara, seal away, Sasori called as he laid both of his hands on the circle. He began to pour chakra into it, and the circle glowed blue. Naruto eyed it with apprehension. Don't worry about that, Naruto. It's a barrier to contain the energy you're going to be emitting when you get the mouths, yeah. Deidara explained as he began to run through seals. He stopped on the 53rd, and grasped Naruto's arm yelling Fuin. All hell broke loose after that. There was a huge flux of energy emanating from Naruto's arms which caused him to scream in pain. Deidara wasn't faring too much better. The reason that this was happening was that Deidara had just performed an incomplete Fuin jutsu. The full jutsu was supposed to simply create a bottomless void in something which could hold an unlimited supply of objects. Deidara had tried to have this done to his arms, so he could store clay back when he had wanted to be a simple artist as a hobby when he was a beginner ninja. But the idiot who had tried to put it on his arms had ended on the 53rd seal, forgetting the 54th. This had led to the ninja wiping out about an eighth of IWA, and inadvertently given Deidara his clay molding palm mouths. When Deidara had experienced what these mouths could do, he quickly learned how to use them and became Iwagakure's one-man wrecking crew. Some time later, being kind of greedy, he had changed his trade to a homicidal explosive specializing terrorist. This had led to him blowing up the Tsuchikage Tower, killing the Tsuchikage of the time. Deidara had immediately realized his wrongs in becoming a mercenary, and fled IWA, tears staining his face and guilt crushing his heart. He only hoped that Naruto would not let the bomb ability go to his head and start blowing countries up. He had spent so much time reminiscing about the past that he did not notice that the chakra field and the volume of Naruto's cries had died down. Seconds later, the two blondes collapsed. Sasori released the barrier and darted in to tend to them. Deidara was the first to recover. He groaned and rubbed his temples. We did it, yeah? He said as he weakly stood up. Naruto was unconscious upon the ground. Deidara patted his cheeks twice to wake him up. The blonde opened his eyes slowly, and immediately groaned in pain. Why do my hands hurt? He asked weakly. Deidara's eyes widened. He had said the exact same thing when his Fuin jutsu attempt had gone wrong. He quickly picked Naruto's arms up and smiled like a maniac. Two mouths had appeared in his palms. They looked exactly like Deidara's, but the teeth were a bit pointier. Fuin jutsu, success, yeah. Deidara screamed the yeah that he added to most of his sentence endings. Naruto looked at his hands and whooped in victory. Yada! I'm just like Deidara Nizen now, Naruto yelled. Sasori cleared his throat. Not yet, kid. We've still got to train you, the puppet master said to him. Deidara grinned as he stood straight up and took off his sunglasses. As of now, Sasori stated, staring the 6-year-old blonde in the eyes, you, Uzumaki Naruto, are the successor of Akasuna no Sasori, Sasori of the Red Sands, and Iwagakure no Deidara, Deidara of the Hidden Rocks. The future master of puppets and the future demolition chief, Sasori said as he stared out across the mountains. Deidara and Naruto joined in the staring. The ninja world was about to be rocked. After the two Nuke-Nin had infiltrated Konoha and stolen a couple of jutsu scrolls, they immediately fled Fire Country and headed for the hideout that they had set up on an uninhabited island south of Kirigakure. Once the two missing Nin and their cute little apprentice had arrived, they got to learning from the Katan scroll and training Naruto. Figuring that he didn't know too much about chakra and jutsus, Deidara and Sasori started training his stamina and endurance. They were both extremely surprised that he could tackle anything that they threw at him, whether it be running 3 laps around the island, or climbing the small mountain in the center. Once Naruto had built up his stamina over the course of a year and a half, Deidara started to teach him a taijutsu style called the Toriken, Praying Mantis Fist. This fighting style relied primarily on fluid, circular motions to deflect attacks, which was followed by lightning-fast strikes to the vital points of the opponent. Deidara said that the Toriken was more effective when a sharp weapon like knuckle knives or katars were used to go with it. When Naruto asked Deidara why he was a little rusty, Deidara sheepishly admitted that he had been practicing it less ever since he started using his bombs. In the light of knowing weapons would be more useful with the style, Sasori began to teach Naruto about weapons and how to use them effectively. Naruto listened and watched with rapt attention as Sasori activated all of his weapon extensions and demonstrated their uses. But what really threw him for a loop was when Sasori asked him which 3 he would like the most. Naruto began to jitter excitedly before Sasori gave him a warning. Don't just choose a weapon because you think it's cool, Naruto. You have to think it over and decide whether it would be useful or not, the puppet master explained. Naruto screwed his face up in concentration. After about 10 seconds, he decided on using a kata for his right arm. Another minute passed before he picked a saw for his left. It was about 2 minutes before Naruto finally asked for a pair of flamethrowers on both of his wrists. When Deidara asked why he wanted two, he said, "I may need some extra firepower," literally. Sasori snickered at Naruto's bad pun, and immediately went to the secret lab to start making the weapons. It was about 5 days later that Sasori finished the weapons, and started to teach Naruto how to use them. This usually meant that Sasori beat the crap out of Naruto, who tried to defend himself. After 6 months, Naruto could hold his own against Sasori for about 3 minutes when Sasori was using a quarter of his strength. That alone was enough to impress the Nigaku. In turn for impressing them so, both of them began to teach Naruto about chakra. The small blonde had a little bit of trouble remembering everything about chakra and its properties, as he would occasionally fall asleep during the boring lectures. He abandoned this later because Sasori started to whack him on the head every time he fell asleep. They moved on to seals after the lectures were over. Naruto had trouble with the seals at first, but could perform them satisfactorily. Deidara and Sasori helped him perfect the seals by randomly shouting out the name of one of them for him to make. After he had gotten the seals down, they taught him a chakra control exercise. Naruto had to keep a kunai stuck to his head. After about 3 days of practice, Naruto progressed to keeping 2 kunai stuck to him. Then 4. Then 8. Once he had decent control over his chakra, both of them taught him a low-rank jutsu from their respective countries. From Deidara, Naruto was taught a C-rank Doton Jutsu, the Tsuchi Bunshin no Jutsu, Earth Clone technique. He managed to get the Bunshin to look exactly like him on his 8th try, impressing Deidara. Sasori taught him a D-rank Futon Jutsu, the Sosenpu no Jutsu, Twin Whirlwind technique. This jutsu created 2 small tornadoes that flew in a circle around him at a moderate pace. It was not a very effective jutsu, as the tornadoes were not very strong and easy to dodge. Naruto managed to get this down with 2 tries. Sasori suspected that Naruto had an affinity for Futon Jutsu, and reminded himself to teach him some more powerful ones. It was Naruto's 8th birthday, and the 2 new Chunin had decided to start teaching him their individual arts, along with some more ninjutsu. Naruto was currently outside on his run around the island. How the kid would do it, Deidara would never know. They had baked him a huge surprise birthday cake for his 8th birthday. The cake almost took up the whole table. Naruto ate a freakish amount of food, and his 2 masters weren't exactly light eaters either. They would occasionally start food fights at random times, and Sasori had a sneaking suspicion that there would be one this time. The 2 of them were hiding, waiting to surprise the kid. Sure enough, the huge stone gate opened to reveal the now 8-year-old blonde. Said child looked confused that the lights were off, and flicked them on, not noticing the string attached to the switch. Immediately, streamers and confetti fell from the ceiling. A couple of fireworks went off, and a large banner fell from the ceiling that read "Happy Birthday Naruto" in large red kanji. Naruto looked back down to find his 2 senseis dressed in party attire. Deidara had a huge, polka-dotted hat on his head that made him look ridiculous. Sasori was decked out in streamers, making him look like an anemone. Naruto giggled, but started to cry after a moment. Deidara and Sasori were immediately concerned. "What's wrong, Naruto?" Sasori asked, crouching down beside the blonde. Naruto wiped his tears and looked at the redhead. "And nobody's ever thrown me a B birthday party before," asked Sasori Nizan. People would usually beat me up on my B birthday." Naruto choked out, continuing to cry. Sasori just held the little kid in a tight, brotherly hug. Deidara joined in after a moment. Both of them vowed to train this kid enough to teach the Konoha pigs a lesson. "Well, Naruto, this cake is for you, and I don't want to let it go to waste, yeah?" Deidara said casually. Naruto tensed up before he looked at the enormous cake and started salivating. The 3 quickly dug into the delicious treat. About halfway through the pig out, Sasori held up a piece of his cake and looked at Deidara slyly. Deidara eyed the redhead warily, and cried out in shock when Sasori slammed the cake into his face. Naruto began to laugh until a slice was sent flying into his own face. Deidara gave a war cry as he slung another piece of the cake at Sasori. After about 10 minutes of fighting with the cake, the 3 stopped and laughed it off. After they had cleaned up, the 2 new Chunin mentioned the presents that they were going to give Naruto. "What are they? What are they? What are they? Tell me. Naruto babbled. "Well, Naruto, seeing as you are our apprentice, we will teach you our respective arts. I will be teaching you the art of puppetry," Sasori explained, summoning one of his puppets. "And I will be teaching you how to use clay bombs, yeah?" Deidara added, showing him a small bird. Naruto's eyes almost popped out of his head. "Yada!" he shouted, jumping for joy. It was early the next morning and the 2 new Chunin and their cute apprentice were standing outside the nondescript-looking hideout. Okay Naruto, listen up. In order to perform the Kagutsu no Jutsu, puppet technique, you must learn how to make chakra strings. In order to do this, you must release a constant stream of chakra from the tip of your finger, like so. Sasori held his hands out towards one of his smaller, 8-limbed puppets that wasn't made from a corpse. It had 2 black eyes, 6 arms, and 2 legs. 5 thin blue strings shot out of his right hand, and 3 from his left. The strings attached to the puppet, and Sasori made it move around. After making the puppet reveal some of its hidden weapons such as saban packets, shuriken launchers, and a tail, Sasori turned to Naruto. In order to make the puppet use specific motions such as extending a poison needle or shooting kunai, a specific finger motion needs to be used. But for now Naruto, I just want you to try and produce a single chakra string and maintain it. Once you have done that, progress to 2 and so on. Sasori instructed. Naruto nodded and began to mold some chakra. After a moment, he extended his right index finger and a short string of chakra shot out of it. It was a little bit thicker than Sasori's and flickered out of existence a moment later. Frowning, Naruto kept trying. After about half an hour, he managed to get the chakra string perfected. 3 days later, he was able to produce and maintain 4 of them. Another day, 2 more strings. And on the 6th day, Naruto was able to produce 10 full chakra strings. He called Sasori out and asked him to summon that 8-limbed puppet. Sasori did so, and his jaw dropped when Naruto attached 8 chakra strings to the puppet and made it charge at him. Good job, Naruto. You mastered the chakra strings a lot faster than I did. As a reward, you get to have this puppet. Sasori handed Naruto the puppet, and the new puppeteer grinned thoughtfully as he looked the puppet over. I'll name you Sasoriza, Scorpion, Constellation. Naruto said more to himself. Sasori began to teach Naruto the finger movements required to make the puppet perform attacks. Naruto would mess up every now and then, but he quickly corrected his mistakes. Very soon he could control Sasoriza effectively enough that he could probably take out an experienced genin if he went all out. Seeing that Naruto was progressing well in the field of puppetry, Deidara started to teach Naruto how to make explosives. Creating the explosive clay is a very delicate process, yeah? How much chakra you use in molding it will determine how powerful the explosion is, yeah? I myself grade them like this: C1 being the weakest, having the power of a couple explosive notes. C2 has the power of a Bunshin Daibakuha, clone great explosion, yeah? C3 is an enormous bomb that could level a large village, yeah? And finally, C4 is a bomb that creates tiny bombs that get inside your enemy and blow him up from the inside, yeah. Deidara explained. He then pulled a small amount of clay from one of his pouches. He let his palm mouth swallow and start to chew it, while imbuing it with a little bit of chakra. After about 10 seconds, the mouth spat out a mass of significantly lighter colored clay. Deidara closed his palm and began to squeeze the clay. He opened his palm to reveal a canary-like bird. He threw it up into the air, and it began to flap its little wings rapidly. Once it had ascended a short distance, Deidara formed a ram's seal and commanded Katsu. The clay bird gave off a small explosion. Deidara looked at Naruto and handed him a small handful of clay. Now you try, yeah? And remember, just a little chakra. Deidara warned. Naruto nodded while rolling his eyes. He let the palm in his hand swallow the clay, and it started to chew. 20 or so seconds later, the mouth spat out a blob of clay which Naruto began to mold into a bird shape. A few seconds passed, and Naruto looked at his finished masterpiece. The bird wasn't half bad looking. Its body was thin, and it had a wide tail for greater maneuverability. The flaws were that the right wing was shorter and broader than the left, and the face and beak were curved to the side. Naruto tossed it up in the air, where it attempted to fly. Unfortunately, due to the difference in the wing size, it fell to the ground and began to smoke. Deidara gasped. Get the fuck out of here, yeah! It's gonna blow! He screamed before sprinting away as fast as he could. Naruto followed quickly. But neither of the 2 pyromaniacs was fast enough. The small bird sparked before letting off a spectacular, flaming explosion. Eahaha! The 2 pyromaniacs cried as the shockwave threw them from their feet and simultaneously entered dreamland. Sasori shook his head as he used his Sandame Kazekage puppet's Setetsu, Iron Sand, ability to carry the 2 blondes back into the hideout. He could sometimes be amazed at the stupidity that his blonde buddy had. Once he set the 2 down on their beds, he retreated to the lab. He had just gotten back from Suna and Kuma with a couple of corpses and lots of metal. Once he had shut the door, he laid the corpse of a Suna jounin named Hiriko on the table. He pulled out his scalpels, drills and needles and began to work. Naruto felt like the entire populace of Konoha had been using his head as a ball for kicking around. Groaning, he sat up and surveyed his surroundings. He was on his bed and Deidara was lying soundly on his own. Naruto looked at the clock and became confused. They had started training at 8:30 a.m., so why was it 7:42 a.m.? Naruto didn't have time to dwell on this thought. Deidara had awoken from his sleep. He rubbed his head and turned to his younger blonde. Well, that was a decent attempt, Naruto, yeah. I didn't expect you to do so well on your first try. Deidara praised. Naruto looked proud of himself before looking around. I wonder where Sasori Rinnegan got to. Naruto murmured quietly. Looking for me? Whispered a deep, husky voice that made Naruto's hair stand on end. He looked to the left to see an unfamiliar-looking man crouching near the door of the lab. He had a dark, tanned face with 5 or 6 braids running along his head and flaring up at the back. The lower half of his face was covered by a mask. While his right arm looked normal, his left arm was metallic and had a huge cylinder on the lower arm. On his back was a large reddish-orange shell in the shape of a face. Protruding from the open mouth was a long metal scorpion tail that was waving gently about. Only 3 people knew about the hideout, and 2 of them were lying on beds. That meant... Sasori? Is that you? Deidara gasped, raising his visible eyebrow. Sasori let out a dark chuckle. Yes, it's me, Deidara. And before you ask, you were out for the rest of the day. I suppose you're wondering why I look like this. Sasori received 2 nods. Well, puppet masters are often left vulnerable, as they're usually not good at close-range combat. What this new look is a Hidokugutsu called Hiriko that serves as armor. Installed in the mouth and left arm are poison senbon and kunai launchers. The cylinder on my right arm is a sort of missile that launches senbon in random directions. The tail is for swatting or stabbing opponents who get too close. Sweet, right? Sasori finished. Deidara was simply looking dumbstruck. I want one of those, Naruto said quietly. Sasori heard him and snickered. Well, Naruto, I could probably teach you how to make a Hidokugutsu now, seeing as you're a natural at puppetry. Follow me. Sasori beckoned Naruto to follow him. Deidara accompanied him as well. He wanted to see how Sasori made his toys. That curiosity was decreased when the stench of the lab hit his nostrils. It reeked of blood, decay, and preservatives. If not for his incredibly strong stomach, Naruto was sure that he would have thrown up by now. Deidara had a faint green tinge on his face. The process of making a Hidokugutsu was not pretty at all. The first stage was to cut the body open and remove the organs. The next thing Sasori did was drain out the rest of the blood and add preservatives so the body wouldn't decay. Once he had let the preservatives settle in, Sasori detached several parts of the body and added a few nasty-looking weapons to it. Even though it is dead, a Hidokugutsu can still produce chakra and use jutsus. The other extremely beneficial attribute to these puppets is that if the original person had a Kekkei Genkai, they retain the ability to use it. Take my Sandame Kazekage puppet for example, he had the ability to use the Setetsu, which is sand with magnetic properties. Sasori explained. He hefted the puppet that he had just created and handed it to Naruto. The weapons that Sasori had put into it were a bomb launcher, an extendable blade in the arms, and a large holding chamber in the chest that could have electricity channeled into it to cook a captured foe. You can use Jijo as your first Hidokugutsu, Naruto. I saw him use several futon jutsu that I'm fairly sure you could learn easily. Think of it as a belated birthday present, said Sasori as Naruto accepted Jijo. A thoughtful look was on Naruto's face. You said that Hidokugutsu retain any Kekkei Genkai that they originally had, right, Sasori Rinnegan? Naruto asked the changed puppet master, who nodded slowly. A sly smile made its way onto Naruto's face. Okay then. Deidara Rinnegan, Sasori Rinnegan, grab your shovels, we're going grave robbing. It was dark, gloomy, and creepy in the graveyard of Kirigakure. Gray clouds drifted across the black night sky. A faint mist hovered around the ground, making Naruto feel uncharacteristically like an actor from a horror movie. He shook his head to clear it as he saw Deidara darting from gravestone to gravestone, looking around warily and running in a crouching position. Sasori just shook his head and chuckled at his blonde friend's antics. Remind me again why we're here, Naruto. Sasori whispered to his blonde apprentice. I just read in the Kiri reporter that the Kage clan had just gone on a killing rampage. Pretty much all of them are dead now, so the corpses should still be fresh. Think about it, Rinnegan. Puppets with the Shikatsumiyaku, dead bone pulse, Kekkei Genkai. Naruto whispered to Sasori, whose eyes widened at the possibilities. He looked up at Deidara, who was beckoning them to come to where he was. Naruto crept towards him slowly, while Sasori slouched forward. Looking around as an extra precaution, Naruto pulled out a small scroll, bit his thumb, and wiped it across the scroll. 2 shovels appeared out of the scroll, and Naruto handed Deidara one. The 2 blondes began to dig up the graves of 2 recently deceased Kage while Sasori kept watch. After about 2 minutes and a lot of sweat later, Deidara and Naruto managed to reach the coffins. Using Sasori's puppets, they were able to dig up the 2 coffins and extract the bodies of Kage's Katamaro and Kukataku. Sasori quickly sealed the bodies into a scroll, and was about to bolt. Chato mat Sasori Nizan. This section of the graveyard is where all of the ninja with bloodlines are. Maybe we should try and dig up a few of them, Naruto suggested. Sasori quickly agreed and went to search for graves that had been dug recently. After an hour and a ninjutsu investigation, Sasori and Naruto had each dug up a member of the Hozuki clan, who could turn themselves into water at will, and Suigetsu's clan, and a member of an unnamed clan that could manipulate water at will and use Hayatan Jutsu. Naruto was leaking his puppet collection already. Deidara was starting to look anxious for some reason. What's wrong, Deidara? Sasori asked, Hiriko's beady eyes showing concern. Oh, nothing you need to worry about, Sasori, yeah? I just don't like graveyards very much, that's all. I keep thinking that zombies will just burst out of the ground and eat our brains out for disturbing their slumber, yeah? Deidara responded in an unusually high voice. Naruto raised one of his eyebrows as a nasty idea for a prank entered his head. As they were walking stealthily out of the graveyard, Naruto discreetly sent a couple chakra strings into a nondescript, but old grave. As Deidara and Sasori were walking by, Naruto jerked the string, making a decayed arm shoot out of the grave. Deidara and Sasori jumped a mile high and paled in the face. Yeah, Hiriko did that. Ducking behind a grave, Naruto manipulated the chakra strings further, making the dirty, bloody, decaying corpse of a man work his way out of the grave. Deidara's hair was standing straight up, and Sasori was clanking about. Naruto snickered before he used his best zombie voice to scare his senseis. Cuckoo, what have we here? Some tasty morsels. Naruto whispered in his best zombie voice as he manipulated the corpse to raise its arms and stagger forward. Both Deidara and Sasori let loose high-pitched screams and fell to the ground as they tripped over a set of gravestones in an effort to get away. Naruto made the corpse advance for another couple of meters, and released the chakra strings. The corpse fell to the ground, and Naruto heard Deidara yell holy shit. Naruto couldn't take it anymore. He stood up from behind the gravestone and laughed. Deidara and Sasori looked at their howling apprentice in shock before screaming at him. You little shit! That was not funny, yeah. I damn near soiled myself. I was so scared there, yeah. Deidara screamed at him. Naruto, you little bastard! Get your ass over here so I can stick my fucking tail up it! Sasori bellowed. Naruto continued to laugh as he ran for his life. With tears of mirth blinding him, he didn't see the crowd of people that had gathered at the graveyard to find the cause of the commotion. Naruto only recognized that a crowd was there when he slammed into them. His laughter immediately stopped when he saw the huge horde of villagers and shinobi. Deidara and Sasori skidded to a halt just behind Naruto. Their eyes almost popped out of their heads when the robe-clad Mizuki himself stepped out from the crowd. What in the 9 levels of burning hell were you three doing in the graveyard? He asked in barely more than a whisper. But that whisper alone carried in it so much murderous intent that Sasori felt like facing all of the combined Kazekages of Suna without his Kazekage puppet, rather than this middle-aged man. Deidara gulped nervously and pulled at the black neck of his sweater. Oh nothing Mizuki-sama, yeah? Just hearing the lovely sights of Kiri is all, yeah? Deidara stammered. Naruto and Sasori's sweat dropped. Deidara, Sasori sighed, smacking his puppet-masked head. You're an asshole. I agree. Naruto seconded. The crowd now looked apprehensive. They knew that Deidara was an S-rank nuke, so who were the hunchback with the tail and the kid? Well, Deidara, seeing as you're standing right here, I guess we'll just have to kill you. I'm sure Tsuchikage-sama will be pleased to have your head on a plaque, said the Mizuki as he discarded his robes. Underneath them was a deep blue set of armor with the kanji for water on the chest plate. He hefted a double-bladed broadsword that appeared to be made of some sort of glittering blue metal. On his left was a small, circular shield. Naruto jumped back and stood in between his Nizans. He quickly whipped out a small scroll that he had been carrying and summoned his 2 puppets Sasoriza and Jijo. Deidara had already molded some clay in his hands, and had a clay dragon ready. Sasori had pulled down his mask and his mouth was open. Naruto, you try and deal with the civilians. We'll take on the Mizuki and shinobi. Got it? Sasori hissed to Naruto, who nodded. For a moment, all was still. Then the Mizuki charged. The 50 or so followers ran straight after him. Naruto made Sasoriza open its mouth and 4 of its 6 hands to shoot poison kunai and saban needles into the crowd at a high velocity. Some of the shinobi managed to evade them, while the civilians couldn't. Naruto watched with satisfaction as about 8 or 9 civilians and shinobi fall as they succumbed to the pain and poison of the kunai and saban needles. He redirected Jijo to use its blade attachments to slash several civilians. They went down easily, but one of them got through. Leaving both of his puppets standing by a single string, Naruto began to fend off his attackers with his Kater, and now active saw. He could activate his saw by transferring a small amount of chakra into it. The input was so small, Sasori had told him, that if a 5-year-old knew how to use chakra, they could keep the saw going for hours without significant drain. Back to Naruto, he was feeling sickened at what he was doing. He never thought that killing would make him feel like this, but he knew that it was for survival. He quickly molded a clay bird hastily and threw it into the crowd. Jumping back with his puppets in tow, Naruto formed a ram's seal and yelled Katsu. The result was a large explosion that only took out 3 or 4 enemies. Shrugging, Naruto fired up his flamethrowers and blasted an approaching civilian before moving on to the next batch. Sasori jumped back and fired another salvo of Saban from Hiriko's mouth. The ninja and Mizukage blocked the attack. Suetun, Swishoha. Water release, water shockwave, the Mizukage shouted. A large wave of water seemed to seep up from the ground and hurl at Sasori. The puppet Nin jumped out of the way just in time. He quickly discarded Hiriko, unraveled one of his scrolls, and wiped his blood on one of the 150 seal markings. There was a blast of smoke, and a large figure in a heavy black cloak with a ponytail appeared. The puppet's mouth opened, and a grayish substance started to float out of it. Sandaime Kazakage Kagutsu no Jutsu, Satetsu Shigure. Third Wind Shadow Puppet Technique, Iron Sand Drizzle, Sasori cried. The puppet held out its arms and the grayish-black sand flew forwards in the shape of raindrops. The drops of poisonous sand flew at the attackers and tore straight through them. Smirking, Sasori used a large tail-like wire in his midsection to attack the Mizukage. The Kage dodged the attack and jumped towards Sasori, thrusting his sword at him. Sasori blocked the strike with his tail, but the segment that deflected the blade seemed to just freeze over with a thin sheen of ice. If he touches me, I'm gonna be a human fucking icicle, Sasori mentally screamed. The Mizukage smirked. I see you figured out Haiken's ice blade power, it freezes whatever it comes in contact with, the Kage explained. Sasori gulped as he summoned a few more puppets out of precaution. Deidara threw another 6 birds into the crowd and detonated them. Only 4 civilians were killed, and the shinobi dodged around the explosion. Deidara started to use what he could of the Torken, and was able to hold off a couple of his foes for a few minutes. But eventually, a sword-wielding Nin managed to give him a cut across his hip. Deidara quickly took to the air and started attacking from long range. The fight seemed to be going well for the Nigako and their apprentice. Sasori and Deidara had either incapacitated or killed most of the shinobi and civilians. Naruto had taken out most of the civilians, and even a couple of shinobi. Now, it was only the Mizukage standing against a pair of S-class Nuke Nin and their apprentice. Pretty good you two. And to you kid, I'm impressed that you could take out a couple of Chunin and Jounin level ninja. The Mizukage complimented as he began to fly through hand seals faster than any of the 3 had seen before. Suetun, Baku Sui Shoha. Water release, exploding water shockwave, he called, spraying a tremendous torrent of water from his mouth and turning the graveyard into a huge, dirty, bloody swimming pool. Deidara flew up on a bird, and Sasori was standing on the water. Naruto, not knowing how to stand on the water or knowing how to make a large clay bird or swim, began to sink. Naruto! Sasori shouted as his blonde apprentice sank into the water. He started to sink in, but the Mizukage charged in and punched Sasori in the jaw. The heavy puppet master flew back a couple of feet and skidded along the water. Your fight is with me, Sasori. You don't have time to watch that little brat die. The Mizukage reprimanded him. Sasori growled. He reached onto his back and pulled a large scroll out. It unraveled and floated in the air above the puppeteer. You will pay for killing Naruto, you tyrant! Akahigi, Hayaki no Son. Red secret technique, performance of 100 puppets, Sasori bellowed, as chakra strings flew out of his right chest. 100 red-robed Hidokugutsu shot out of the scroll and surrounded the blue-armored Kage. Deidara had also molded a larger clay statue that looked somewhat like a Buddhist monk. The Mizukage looked impressed. Interesting abilities you two. But can you? He stopped as the water near him began to boil. He looked at the center of the boiling water, and his eyes widened when a whirlpool started to spin. After a moment of the water rotating faster and faster, a figure rose out of it on a small pillar of water. Sasori, Deidara, and the Mizukage gasped at what they saw. It was Naruto, but with a couple of new features. From what Deidara and Sasori could see from behind him, his hair was more wild and animalistic looking and his nails had become claws. From the front, the Mizukage was paralyzed. He thought he was looking into the face of a demon. The blonde boy's whisker marks had become more defined, his canines had elongated, and his blue eyes had become red with slitted pupils. What all 3 of them could see was a veil of blood-red chakra that was covering the boy in the shape of a 3-tailed fox. Seeing that red aura made something in Deidara's memory come together like the pieces of a puzzle. Wait a second, what did Naruto say that the villagers called him? Monster, demon, fox, and that red chakra, of course. Only one demon had red chakra, and that was the Kyuubi no Kitsune. But if I remember correctly, the Kyuubi was sealed away by the Yondaime. Then that must mean Naruto's a Jinchuriki. Deidara concluded. Naruto chuckled, but his real voice was overlaid by a voice far more sinister. You will pay for trying to drown me, no, make that us, you mortal fool, said the overlapping voices of Naruto/Kyuubi before they blinked out of existence. The Mizukage tried to force himself to calm down, but it wouldn't come. He continued looking around for the boy, but saw nothing except for the 2 Nuke Nin and 100 puppets. A sudden popping noise caused him to look downwards. There were several flashes in the water, and the Mizukage jumped away as the explosions reached the surface. Huge geysers of water shot into the air, and Naruto/Kyuubi rode out on a small pillar of water. Suiton, Suigata no Jutsu. Water release, water fong bullet technique, the Mizukage shouted. 5 spiraling pillars of water shot up from the surface. The tips formed into sharp spikes and made a beeline for Naruto. The little blonde flipped and twisted out of the way, and even sliced one of the Suigaten with his claws. Maninpo, Tayatari Bunshin no Jutsu. Demonic ninja art, suicidal bombing replication technique, Naruto/Kyuubi countered. A Bunshin appeared out of midair, and flew straight towards the Mizukage. It had its arms tucked into its sides and was flying headfirst, making it look like a demon chakra-covered missile. The Mizukage managed to evade the speeding clone, which blew up when it hit the water, sending out huge shockwaves. The Mizukage was momentarily stunned, but was forced back into reality when a chakra claw sank into his side. He screamed as the claw burned him, but did not cut him. His scream was silenced when Naruto hit him in the solar plexus. Naruto slugged him in the gut a few more times until he kicked the Kage away. The two locked in a furious taijutsu match that was damn near impossible for Sasori and Deidara to follow. For a couple of minutes, neither Kage nor Jinchuriki seemed to be gaining the upper hand. But Naruto jumped away from the Mizukage a moment later, and shot a large clay octopus at him. The Kage tried to pry the clay octopus off of his chest, but Naruto placed his hand on the octopus head and shouted Dendos. Electric current, the Mizukage screamed as the electricity coursed through his body. The octopus disappeared, and Naruto/Kyuubi shoved the Kage's head under the water. The red chakra covering his arms wrapped around the Kage's arms and legs, restraining him. The Kage struggled for a moment, but became still, and Naruto pulled the dead Kage out of the water. Sasori and Deidara were looking horrified. A kid who wasn't even a genin just took out a Kage-level ninja. The aura around Naruto began to recede, and the blonde boy fell unconscious. Naruto awoke to the sight of his Nezen staring at him. He groaned and rubbed his temples as he sat up. Ugh, who's been using me as a shoe mat? Naruto groaned, blinking his eyes hard. Naruto, do you remember what happened back in the graveyard? Sasori asked. Naruto noted that he wasn't wearing Hiriko, and there was concern in his eyes. Yeah, we were grave robbing for Hidokagetsu, and we ran into a bunch of gate crashers. We managed to defeat them, and were about to attack the Mizukage, but he used some technique to turn the graveyard into a lake. The last thing I remember clearly is sinking. I had a couple of hazy visions where I was attacking the Mizukage, but wasn't making my body move. Naruto recited. Deidara and Sasori looked at each other. Naruto, was there ever a demon that attacked your village? Deidara asked. Of course. The Kyuubi attacked Konoha 8 years ago, but the Yondaime fought and killed it at the cost of his life. Why do you ask? Naruto finished, raising his eyebrows and tilting his head to the side. Sasori sighed. We think that that's a lie, Naruto. No, we're not denying that your Yondaime was strong, we're just saying that a bijou is too strong to be killed. They can, however, be sealed away. But the only way that they can be properly contained is by sealing them in a child whose chakra coils had not developed yet. What day did the Kyuubi attack Konoha? The puppet master asked, eyeing Naruto critically. October 10th, but how does Kami-sama? Naruto gasped as all of the pieces fell into place, the glares, the beatings, the names, the hate, and the assassination attempts. You see, Naruto, you're what people would call a Jinchuriki, yeah? Jinchuriki are people with demon spirits sealed inside them. However, that does not make you a demon, yeah? You are what you choose to be. And as you barely remember, Jinchuriki possess ungodly power as you demonstrated when you murdered the Mizukage, yeah? Deidara explained. At the final statement, Naruto's eyes became as wide as dinner plates. I killed the Mizukage while the Kyuubi was taking over? Naruto asked incredulously. Sasori smirked and held up the dead body of the ex-tyrannical ruler. A smirk made its way onto Naruto's face that matched his Nezen's. This is kind of ironic. Sasori Nezen murdered the Sandaime Kazekage, and I murdered the Sandaime Mizukage, Naruto said with a small snicker. Hey, don't forget me, yeah? I killed at Suchikage. Deidara piped in. All three of the Kage killers laughed. Time skip, 4 years later. A young blonde sighed in contentment as the wind whipped at his face. He sighed again and looked back on his 6 years of training. In those 6 years, he had gained enough stamina to run from Konoha to Suna within 2 days. His chakra control was good enough so that he could form a small amount of healing chakra. Not a lot, but enough to stop internal bleeding should it happen. He had also invented a new form of the Kagutsu no Jutsu, branching chakra strings. What this modified style did was shoot a simple chakra string from his finger which expanded into 5. He could control a whole puppet with a single string, and with 5 on each finger, he could control 50 at a time. Naruto had originally developed this modified jutsu in order to create his ultimate puppet move, Kuroi Higi, Haki no Son, Yellow Secret Technique, performance of 50 puppets. This move was exactly like Sasori's Hayaki, but with half the puppets. With this jutsu, Naruto had brought down a small village of ninja mercenaries and bounty hunters. But Naruto's favorite puppet, next to his Sandai Mizukage puppet, that is, was Yan. Yan was modeled after Sasori's Hiriko, but altered. Yan, as the name implied, had 4 thinner tails instead of one that Naruto could control. And instead of a scorpion's tail, Yan's tails were modeled after fox tails. And instead of completely covering Naruto's body, it only served as body armor. On his left arm was a Saban barrel. This device launched packets of poison Saban needles, and revolved to the next slug with a tiny push of chakra. On his right arm was a vibrocatter. This catter was like a normal one, but it vibrated rapidly when chakra was pushed into it, giving it the ability to slice through almost anything. Naruto had also learned how to infuse Kyuubi's chakra with his clay bombs. The fox's chakra made the bombs take on the features of whatever they were molded to look like. For example, if he molded a clay falcon with Kyuubi's chakra, the falcon would become colored to the likeness of a falcon. Kyuubi's chakra also made his clay bombs go much faster, so fast that even Naruto had trouble keeping up with them. They also left a blood-red trail behind them. Naruto's Kyuubi-powered bombs were also much more deadly than Deidara's bombs. One of Naruto's C1 bombs with Kyuubi's chakra was equivalent to about 5 of Deidara's C1 bombs. One of Naruto's Kyuubi C2s was about as powerful as Deidara's C3 bombs. And Naruto had only used his Kyuubi C3 once. What was once an enormous industrial city that spanned for almost 20 kilometers was now a huge crater hundreds of feet deep. But despite him using both arts, the only art he recognized as true art were the culinary arts. Deidara and Sasori had, of course, been comically traumatized when Naruto had admitted that. But Naruto had not grown arrogant or overconfident as he mastered puppetry, pyrotechnics, and all of the jutsu scrolls, including the forbidden ones, that the newly named Sengaku, 3 artists, had acquired. Naruto was actually quite humble about his abilities, often opting to improve himself. Not only had his mind grown, so had he. He now stood about 5 feet 2 inches and was not buff, nor skinny, just a little bigger than being slender. He had grown his hair to his shoulders in an almost mullet style, but not. The hairdo, along with not always wearing that goofy fake smile all the time, earned him lustful looks from girls wherever he went. His wardrobe consisted of a dark red shirt and a black velvet jacket. He also wore fancy black pants and a set of ninja zora. Of course, most of his clothing was covered by Yan, but that didn't matter, the puppet would be off of him soon anyways. Why? Because it was Naruto's 12th birthday, and his Nizans were taking him to Otogekure to do a little partying. Oto was a village that used sound-based attacks, and they also excelled in modern technology. This naturally led them to having quite a few dance clubs that were for ninja only. Naruto could see 1 or 2 of the club's lights as the Sengaku descended towards Oto. The 3 ninja had landed and were walking through the streets of the village with all of their weapons sealed away. It was a relatively small village, and there weren't a lot of civilians. But the ninja forces were mostly made up of Nukenin from other countries. Not wanting to be recognized, Deidara and Sasori had placed henges on themselves to avoid being recognized. After walking for a while, they found a club that was admitting all ages. Releasing the henge, the Sengaku walked into the lively club. Lights flashed everywhere, and the music was blaring. Sasori grinned as he went off to do some babe watching. Deidara giggled perversely as he weaved his way through the hordes of people. Naruto began to get his groove on as he wove through the crowd. The girls, upon seeing a handsome blonde-haired blue-eyed boy, naturally flocked to him. If Naruto had to guess, he would assume that the age range was between 11 and 19. Naruto grinned at all the attention he was getting and returned the favor by dancing with as many of them as he could. It was only after a while that he noticed that it was only the more skanky girls that were dancing with him. Naruto began to detach himself from the horde of women after a little bit. He began observing the club for any particular girl that caught his eye. And find one he did. She looked to be a year or 2 older than him, and was standing off by herself a little bit. Why a beauty like her was alone, Naruto knew not. She was wearing a white shirt that let her dark bra show through, accentuating her bust quite nicely. She was wearing a black skirt with a loose belt that fell to just above her knees, showing off her shapely legs. She had a thin, angular face with slanted eyes and long lashes that were bereft of copious amounts of makeup. She had twinkling black eyes and full lips to which were uncovered by her waist-length hair that was tied back in a purple ribbon. Naruto couldn't help but stare for a second before he made his way over to her. He grew a little concerned when he saw that she was crying. "Why are you standing all alone over here?" he asked her softly. She jumped a little before she turned to him and wiped a tear from her eye. My boyfriend dumped me for some hussy in here, but why do you care?" she asked softly, her puffy red eyes curious. "Well, I just noticed you standing over here all alone, and I have an irresistible need to help people whenever I can," Naruto retorted. "Can I help you at all?" he added. She had now turned to face him completely, and was drawing closer. "You can be my shoulder to cry on," she whispered before she buried her face into his chest and clung to him, crying softly. Completely shocked at first, Naruto didn't know what to do. After a second, he wrapped his arms gently around her and stroked her back and hair softly. While he was comforting her, he saw Sasori surrounded by a horde of girls who were all squealing as he shook his, literal, buns of steel. Looking a little further, Deidara was laying in a chair with a couple of girls pampering the odd blonde. Deidara looked at Naruto for a second, noted his situation, and gave him a cheesy smile and a double thumbs up. Another couple of minutes passed before the girl stopped crying and let go of Naruto. Sniffling, she looked into Naruto's eyes. He smiled gently as he wiped her tears away. "Better?" he asked her softly. She managed to form a wet, weak smile. "Yes, thank you. I never got your name." "I'm Tsuchi-kin." Kin introduced herself, still in his embrace. "Uzumaki Naruto," he returned, taking her hand and kissing it. Naturally, she blushed. "Well, Naruto, do you want to dance with me?" Kin's voice became quieter as she finished her sentence. Naruto looked surprised for a second before he agreed. Smiling happily, Kin took Naruto's hand and led him onto the dance floor. A slow, funky-sounding song had begun to play, and the couples were grinding left and right. Kin turned around and gently pressed herself against Naruto. As she began to sway to the beat, Naruto gently wrapped his arms around her. Several people were shocked. Tsuchi-kin, Oto's ice princess, was grinding with a complete stranger. Some people gawked, while others let out wolf whistles. Naruto could care less at the moment. Right now, the only people who existed were Kin and he. He gently traced his hands over her stomach and hips, getting a little shiver from the girl. They danced for 3 songs before they went over to a small lounge area and got to know each other a little bit. Kin enjoyed music and horticulture. She disliked fangirl kunoichi and people who judged. Her hobbies were writing music for her friend Tayuya and training to become a great kunoichi. She was quite intrigued when she learned that Naruto was an art lover. When she asked what painter he liked, he laughed loudly and explained to her that he was a puppeteer and a pyromaniac ninja. She was comically shocked when he explained that to her. He told her of his love for ramen that he had sorely missed on his 6-year training trip, and his love for training. He told her of his dislike of those with kekei genkai who acted superior to everyone else, and judgmental idiots. Kin was awed at his dream to become a Kage and asked why he wanted to become one. "Well, first is for people to acknowledge and respect me, something nobody did back home because of something I had no control over. The second reason is because I want to prove it can be done to those who thought I was a loser," he explained. Kin nodded and agreed that she would have wanted to do something like that to rub it in people's faces. They spent the rest of the night talking, laughing and dancing with each other. At around midnight, Naruto bade Kin goodnight, hoping to see her again one day. Once the Sangaku were back up in the air, Deidara and Sasori began to bombard Naruto with questions about Kin. To which he replied, "I don't kiss and tell." Later that night, Deidara awoke to a horrified scream. It turned out that all of Sasori's puppets had been put in frilly pink dresses with bows, lace, and makeup. Sasori stopped crying and burst out laughing when he saw Deidara's face had been scribbled all over with markers and makeup. From his bed, Naruto smirked as his knees and screams reached his ears. It was a few days later, and the Sangaku were hiding in the trees near the north gate of Konoha. Naruto glowered at the towering gates of his own personal hell. Sighing, he turned to his Nizans. "Well, you two, I guess this is goodbye," Naruto admonished. He was startled when Deidara and Sasori enveloped him in a one-armed hug each. "For now anyways, yeah?" Deidara replied. "But we will see you again, Naruto, yeah? We have taught you well, kid. Don't disappoint us by not whooping the ass of everyone in your village," Sasori instructed Naruto, who snapped to a mock salute. "Yes, sir," Naruto said forcefully, eliciting a small chuckle from Deidara. Naruto sighed as he put on his straw hat and walked over to the tree's main body. Hirubansho, Boku no Jutsu. Leech all creation, attack prevention technique, the jutsu Zetsu uses to get around, Naruto announced as he merged with the tree and vanished. Naruto stumbled out of a tree in the less populated area of Konoha, and promptly fell to his knees. Ugh, I hate using that, but I love it too. It gets you around quickly, but it makes you feel sick. Naruto mentally grumbled. He straightened his straw hat and began to walk sedately through Konoha. Many curious glances were sent his way, but it was probably because of his cloak. The cloak had a high collar that reached his nose, and was decorated with golden yellow foxes, same as an Akatsuki cloak. On the back of it was the kanji for 3. This was the garb of the Sengaku. Deidara's cloak had sky blue birds on his, and Sasori's was decorated by red scorpions. Naruto simply ignored the villagers' gazes as he strolled through his old home. Naruto stopped at the Ninja Academy as he walked past it. When he had been taken in by Deidara and Sasori, he had just been in the academy for a week. As he pondered on his memories, he heard sounds of combat coming from the back of the academy. Curiosity piqued, Naruto slunk sedately towards the back of the academy. What greeted his eyes was a group of students that looked about his age in a ring watching a fight. The two combatants were a boy with raven black hair that was in a style similar to a chicken's ass. He wore a dark blue jacket with an Uchiwa fan on the back of it, and a set of white shorts with bandages on his shins. He had a perpetually angsty look about him that screamed piss off. His opponent was a boy in a large gray jacket with black lining and dark brown pants. He had a feral, animalistic look on his face, along with 2 red fawn-like markings on his cheeks. This boy looked to be losing when Chicken Ass kicked him in the face, decking him, and slamming his heel into his stomach. The sensei, a man with a ponytail and a scar across the bridge of his nose, called the match, and most of the girls began to squeal Sasuke-kun. Naruto walked slowly and stealthily into the yard while rolling his eyes. Okay, good match you two. Kiba, you left yourself open after that slash, but other than that you did well. Sasuke, your taijutsu was flawless, and good demonstration of the Kawarimi and Bunshin no Jutsu. The Chunin praised. Kiba retreated back into the crowd, and the teacher looked at the students. Okay, who else would like to spar with Sasuke today? He asked. Before too many hands went up, Naruto spoke up. I do, he called. Everyone turned to look at the boy in the straw hat and cloak. And you are? The Chunin asked, cocking an eyebrow. My name is of no importance at this point. All you need to know is that I'm really good, Naruto stated as he walked into the ring to face Sasuke. The Angst King narrowed his eyes. Why will you not tell us your name? Are you scared to be facing an Uchiha? He asked mockingly. Several girls shouted their agreements, while Naruto just narrowed his eyes and gave a stare so cold that Snow Ninja would freeze. Now I know why Itachi left you alive, so he could laugh his murderous ass off when that big mouth o' yours gets you killed someday. Naruto shot back. True to his statement, Naruto had met Uchiha Itachi on his travels. The Uchiha had stumbled into a clearing that he, Deidara, and Sasori had been camping in, exhausted. When he had camped with them for the night, Naruto had asked him why he had fled, and Itachi had told him. When Naruto asked why he didn't kill Sasuke, he responded with the exact words Naruto had said. Saying this naturally made the crowd gasp and Sasuke bristle in anger. Shut up! Sasuke screamed as he got into a fighting stance. Naruto grinned as he spread his legs a little bit. Many of Sasuke's fangirls were screaming things like "Go, Sasuke-kun," and "Kick his ass." There was silence for a moment until the scarred Chunin called Hajime. Sasuke immediately charged in and aimed a kick at Naruto, who simply stood there and took it. Sasuke smirked when the cloaked boy keeled over, but frowned when he turned to mud. Is that really the best you can do? Naruto's voice came from behind Sasuke. He whipped around to see Naruto standing there with his arms crossed. How the hell did you get away from me? You didn't even use hand seals! Sasuke exclaimed. The Chunin was looking shocked. He had not seen Naruto move either. When you've been using that jutsu since you were 8 years old, you don't need hand seals for it. Naruto responded simply. Katon, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Fire release, great fireball technique, Sasuke cried, exhaling a huge fireball from his mouth. He smirked again when Naruto was nowhere to be found. But he was unexpectedly hit in the back by something sharp which pierced his skin. He turned around to see Naruto with some sort of 6-armed metal, and a monster in a dark yellow cloak standing next to him. What the hell is that? Sasuke asked as he rubbed the cut spot on his back. Oh, this is Sasoriza, one of my toys. But you shouldn't be worried about Sasoriza, Sasuke. Naruto said simply as he pulled a small vial filled with a clear liquid out of his pocket. And what is that? The Chunin asked as he eyed the vial. The antidote. Naruto replied simply. Before they could ask what it was for, Sasuke began to spasm and fell to the ground, twitching and screaming in pain. Many of the fangirls rushed to their beloved Sasuke-kun's side. What the hell did you do to Sasuke-kun? A pink-haired girl in a red dress screamed at him. Naruto winced as he rubbed his ears. Yar, so loud and annoying. He drawled softly. What I injected into the Uchiha here is a special poison that I developed myself. It hasn't been recorded in the medical books, so only I have a cure for it. What it's made of is multiple corrosive acids and a couple pinches of poison with a side of methamphetamine. Why the meth? Well, meth is a stimulant that gets the heart pumping faster, thereby making the blood move faster through the body and circulating the poison much faster. Once the poison starts to take effect, Sasuke's arterial and venial walls will start to be eaten away and distribute the poison through his flesh. In short, Sasuke's body will be eaten away by my poison, Naruto explained. The Chunin and students looked horrified. That was a nasty poison but an effective one too. Naruto walked sedately up to the thrashing Uchiha, wrenched his mouth open, poured the antidote down his throat, and pinched his nose. Sasuke swallowed the antidote, and his thrashing lessened a little bit. After about 10 minutes, he was simply lying on the ground, panting. Naruto stood up and smacked his hands together. Well, my work here is done. And it only took 2 moves and my weakest puppet to defeat an Uchiha, heralded as the greatest of ninja. Naruto boasted as he walked away, cloak flapping in the breeze. By that time, Sasuke had gotten up and began to lurch towards Naruto's retreating form. This lurch turned into a charge. Naruto sighed as he flung something that the rest of the students could not see. Naruto formed a ram seal and yelled Katsu. The bomb detonated a short distance from Sasuke, and the Avenger was thrown from his feet. He rolled back to his fangirls and the rest of the class, clothes and skin singed and cooked. Sheesh, he's an idiot too, Naruto remarked. The fangirls were too shocked to say anything else. Naruto began to covertly form hand seals behind his back. Well kiddies, I have some other matters to attend to right now. So train hard, and I'll see ya in hell. Naruto shouted as he began to sink into the ground, courtesy of the Hiru Bansho, Boku no Jutsu. Just before he was completely submerged, he did his best evil cackle to enhance the effect. Needless to say, everyone was more than a little creeped. Who was that kid? Okay, all jounin. Today we are gathered to observe the genin who will be taking the graduation exam, and to pick out teams, assuming all graduates pass. The Sandaime addressed the 9 jounin in the room. The 3 notables were Hatake Kakashi, revered as the copy ninja, Yohi Kurenai, the gorgeous genjutsu mistress, and Sarutobi Asuma, son of the Sandaime. I will choose Uchiha Sasuke, Harino Sakura, and Kuroki Jin, Kakashi said lazily from behind his orange book. I shall take Inuzuka Kiba, Hyuga Hinata, and Aburame Shino, Kurenai added, looking at Kakashi's book disdainfully. I choose Nara Shikamaru, Akimichi Chuji, and Yamanaka Ino, Asuma said while pulling out a smoke. The rest of the jounin took their pick of the litter as Sarutobi wrote it down. Once all of the names had been called, Sarutobi looked at Kakashi. If I may ask, why Sasuke, Kakashi? Obviously you two are the only 2 people left in Konoha with the Sharingan, but why else? The old man asked the Cyclops with a critical eye. I can see that Sasuke is strong, but his mind is weak. I chose him because he needs to learn that he cannot rely only on himself to avenge what has been done to him and his clan. Plus I feel that it is necessary after the incident. Kakashi quieted near the ending of his sentence. Well, get ready for some wrinkles, dude. Sasuke's an asshole, came a voice. Startled, the assembled ninja looked for the source of the voice. I'm up here, it said again. A dozen heads looked up, and many more eyes widened when they saw a figure coming out of the ceiling, face first. He dropped out of the ceiling and landed with all the grace of a cat. Many of the jounin tensed and reached for weapons. And who are you? Sarutobi asked, extinguishing his pipe and looking intently at the cloaked boy. Said boy gave a chin, before he removed his straw hat. The Hokage gasped as he looked into the grown face of Uzumaki Naruto. Hisashiburi Dana, Enio Jizen? Naruto? Sarutobi finally managed to ask the cloaked blonde boy. The rest of the room was silent. Whether from shock or tenseness, Naruto knew not. Is it really you? The professor asked. Naruto gave the old man his trademarked foxy grin. The one and only Ojizen, Naruto answered. Hearing the boy called the Hokage grandpa put a majority of the assembled shinobi at ease. Nobody except the Hokage's son or grandson would call him something so informal. Uzumaki Naruto was the single exception. The Hokage jumped out from behind the desk and wrapped Naruto up in a hug. A couple of jounin smirked as they filed this incident away for later blackmail material. One or two of the kunoichi smiled at the touching moment. "Where the hell have you been for the past 6 years?" the Sandaime demanded, releasing Naruto and staring down at him. Naruto suddenly gulped under the scrutiny of the most powerful shinobi in Konoha. "All over the place," Naruto answered. The few jounin that didn't face fault sweat dropped. "And what did you do while you were all over the place?" Sarutobi asked, pulling out his pipe and igniting it. "Well, I trained like crazy, which reminds me." Naruto reached inside of his cloak and pulled a scroll out of one of his pockets. He unraveled it for a little bit until he reached a ceiling point. That red scroll, he poured some chakra into it. There was a puff of smoke, and a very large green scroll that had the kanji forbidden on it appeared. Everyone in the room gasped when they saw it. "One forbidden scroll, property of Konoha," Naruto announced. "And no, I didn't steal it. It was my Nizans who stole it. I just learned from it." The room was silent as Naruto placed it back on the Hokage's desk. "Who are these Nizans of yours, Naruto?" the Hokage asked. Naruto paused. "If you see me fight, you'll get a pretty good clue," Naruto replied cryptically. "You can perform jutsu from that scroll?" asked a red-eyed kunoichi from the crowd. Naruto resisted the urge to whistle. She was hot. "You bet your ass I can, Tutsi. Before you ask, I learned the Kage Bunshin, Katan, Go-Kaden, Katan Kekai, Hai Noenjin, and Katan Carrier Enden." Naruto reeled off the 4 jutsu that he learned from the scroll. Kurenai blushed when Naruto called her Tutsi. "I assume those jutsu aren't the only ones you know?" Sarutobi asked rhetorically. Naruto shook his head no. "Well, what else can you do?" "Well, if I were to reel off all of the stuff I know, we'd be in here for a long time. Summing it all up, I know almost 100 jutsu. More of them are in the Doton and Futon category. I use the Toriken Taijutsu style, but I'm more of a middle to long-range fighter. That being said, I'm really good at causing collateral damage," and Naruto paused for a moment, debating whether to disclose the next piece of information. Well, they're probably gonna find out sooner or later, Naruto thought. Taking a deep breath, he disclosed the piece of information to the awaiting crowd of shinobi. "I can exercise a small amount of control over my tenant's chakra," Naruto said hurriedly. If the room was quiet beforehand, it was a graveyard now. The Hokage had paled so much, he seemed dead. Nobody noticed a rather feminine-looking, male Hyuga jounin exit the office. "The seal hasn't broken, has it?" one of the jounin from the crowd asked. "No, of course not. I would be pushing up the daisies if it had broken. The fuzz ball gives me chakra in life-threatening situations, or if I want some in order to increase the power of an attack," Naruto replied. "How long have you known?" Sarutobi asked. "The fox made himself known to me about 4 years ago when my Nizans and I were attacked in Kirigakure. He's never tried to take control over my body and mind, so I'm perfectly stable for those who are feeling doubtful," Naruto assured everyone in the room. "How powerful would you say you are, Naruto?" Sarutobi asked. Naruto remained silent for a second. "With, or without Kyuubi chakra?" "Without." Naruto thought for a second or two. "Well, in that case, I could probably rough up a couple of jounin in this room. It would be hard, though," Naruto admitted. "I assume that it's still your dream to become Hokage?" "Of course. Why?" "Well, with your skills, I think that it would be a waste to put you through the Genin exam. So for you, Naruto, this will be your test. You must fight 3 of the shinobi in this room. If you are victorious in 2 of the 3 battles, I will give you the position of Tokubetsu Genin," Sarutobi explained. Naruto raised an eyebrow in curiosity. "What's a Tokubetsu Genin?" he asked. "Well, truth be told, it's just a position I made up on the spot. What the position is, you will be a Genin who will be assigned higher-ranked missions, or accompany other first-year Genin on their higher-ranked missions," Sarutobi explained. Naruto grinned. "Who are the unlucky opponents?" Naruto asked. Sarutobi looked out across the assembled shinobi. "Uzumaki Naruto, your opponents will be Yuhi Kurenai, Mitarashi Enko, and Hatake Kakashi," the Sandaime announced. The red-eyed jounin from earlier stepped forwards. A scantily clad, purple-haired woman forced her way to the front of the crowd. And the silver-haired, mask-wearing jounin with the orange book raised his hand slightly. "Yosh! What training ground are we gonna use?" Standing in the large clearing that was part of Training Ground 44, Naruto faced Yuhi Kurenai. The red-eyed woman's face was emotionless, and Naruto's was one of calm impassiveness. The jounin who were assembled in the Hokage's office were gathered around the 2 competitors. Even Sarutobi himself was there, having left a dozen or so Kage Bunshin to do his paperwork after Naruto had told him of the trick. Are both competitors ready? Asked the scarred jounin in a trench coat. He received a nod from Kurenai and Naruto. Hajime. For a moment, neither of them moved. As Naruto suspected, Kurenai wasn't one to just try and get things over quickly. He grabbed the shallow, conical straw hat on his head and threw it at the kunoichi like a frisbee. Kurenai moved to the side when she saw that the hat flew faster than something made of straw should fly. Her jaw dropped when she watched the hat sail past her and embed itself in a tree. A blade in the hat? Clever Naruto, but it'll take more than that. Kurenai mused as she watched the blonde flipping through a few seals. Kasumi and Byu no Jutsu, Naruto announced. From his mouth he shot a very pale yellow, almost transparent, gas that covered a large area around him. Kurenai had never seen this jutsu before, but she was wary. The gas was not poisonous, as she had not died from inhaling it. She grew rather worried when she saw Naruto smirking outside of the cloud. He threw something from his right hand into the mist. Kurenai's eyes widened when she recognized the technique Naruto was using. Someone covered an area in something flammable or explosive, and chucked a bomb into it to blow said area up. Kurenai took a flying leap out of the gas just as Naruto shouted Katsu. Kaboom! The area that was covered in the flammable gas went up in yellowish-white flames. The flames licked at Kurenai's body, and she winced when her skin was warmed considerably from the heat of the explosion. As the smoke cleared, she narrowed her eyes at Naruto, who was smirking at her. Megan, Jibaku Satsu. She whispered the name of her favorite genjutsu. To Naruto, she looked like she had vanished into the wind. The blonde stood stock still as the illusionary tree roots formed around him. Kurenai appeared above him from the tree, and held a kunai to his throat. I win, Naruto, she stated. She grew suspicious when Naruto smirked. No, you don't, he retorted before he dissolved into mud. Kurenai looked around for the blonde and found him sitting in a tree. Katan, Hosenka no Jutsu, Kurenai shouted, launching a dozen fireballs at Naruto. Hiru Bansho, Boka no Jutsu, Naruto countered. He sank into the tree's flesh, avoiding the fireballs. I gotta learn that jutsu, Kurenai thought as Naruto emerged from the ground about 10 meters away from her. He raised his left arm to reveal some sort of bulky vambrace with about 40 holes arranged in 2 rows. A wooden cylinder shot out of one of the holes, and split open to reveal about a dozen saban needles. Kurenai narrowly dodged them, and quickly avoided a second salvo. Oh, just to warn you, Kurenai-san, all of my weapons, down to every last saban needle, have been dipped in my own personal brand of poison. I would advise you not to get hit by any of my weapons if you don't want to be eaten away from the inside out, Naruto informed the jounin. Kurenai gulped. This kid meant business. She tensed herself when he pulled his hand out of one of the 2 pouches on his right hip. Naruto charged at Kurenai, and she took out a pair of kunai. Naruto raised his right arm to reveal a cutter on his wrist. He swung at her, and she narrowly avoided the strike. Kurenai started to dodge and block furiously as Naruto began a taijutsu barrage. His moves flowed in circles, and all seemed to strike at her vital points. She almost got hit in the lungs and heart on more than one occasion. After watching him attack while narrowly dodging every one, Kurenai caught a thrust aimed at her carotid artery. She pulled Naruto's arm forwards and kicked him in the chest. He didn't skid back too far, but taijutsu wasn't exactly her strong point. She threw a couple of kunai and shuriken at Naruto, who bounced away. He threw whatever he had in his right hand up in the air. There was a tiny puff of smoke, and whatever it was seemed to have expanded. Kurenai squinted, and was able to discern the object as a highly simplified hummingbird that was tan in color. The bird flitted about for a second before it zipped towards her. Kurenai felt herself starting to tire as she danced around the strange little bird. On one particularly near miss, the genjutsu mistress got a quick glance at what the bird was made of: clay. She remembered hearing of a shinobi that used clay as a weapon, but she couldn't remember his name. Katsu! Naruto commanded again. The tiny bird exploded spectacularly. Kurenai felt the shockwave set off by the explosion, as well as the heat. She bounced off of her back and landed on her feet. Naruto was standing at the edge of the clearing, looking a little bored. Well, you're quite the fighter, Naruto. But this ends here, Kurenai declared. She went through a seal sequence that Naruto knew all too well. Katan, Karya Enden! Kurenai cried as she took a deep breath. White-hot flames burst from her mouth as she exhaled. Naruto reached into his pocket to grab something, but the flames got to him before he could do whatever he needed to do. Kurenai stopped blasting after a few seconds, hoping that she hadn't gone overboard. She would have to end this quickly. That last Katan jutsu burned up about a quarter of her reserves, which were none too large. Her eyebrows disappeared into her hairline as she saw something strange when the smoke from the jutsu dispersed. Where Naruto should have been were two odd-looking things. They looked like metal scales that were shaped like half-ovals, glowing in orange color, presumably from absorbing the heat from her jutsu. There were many of them, at least 75 per object, grouped together in the shape of a pair of gargantuan, feathered wings. They suddenly creaked open to reveal Naruto with his left hand in front of him with his fingers in an odd position. Behind Naruto was something that looked like a rather handsome person with brownish-gray skin, clad in a dark goldenrod robe. It was the object that the wings were attached to. Nice jutsu there, Kurenai-san. You forced me to bring out the big guns. This is Tenchi, by the way. Naruto appraised and explained, jerking his right thumb at Tenchi. What exactly is Tenchi, Naruto? Kurenai asked, eyeing Tenchi warily. Naruto frowned. I figured you would have known, seeing as you're a jounin. Tenchi is a puppet, Kurenai-san. My 17th one, in fact. He was a Hoshi jounin before he faced me. Now, he's a heavy artillery defensive/offensive puppet. Naruto said before he moved his hand in an odd way. Tenchi's right wing moved so that the tip of it was pointing at her. The feathers on the tips of the wings were full cylinders. From one of them launched a circular device that Kurenai recognized as a grenade. The little bomb exploded on the ground in a blast of greenish flames, blinding Kurenai for a second or two. She picked up a loud clicking noise, but couldn't see where it was coming from. She pressed her fingers into her eyes, which cleared her vision quickly. She opened her eyes to see Tenchi flying at her with its wings outstretched. Her eyes widened when dozens of Tenchi's feathers slid back small metal panels to reveal seals on the inner wings. Dozens of them started to glow, and both blades and spikes appeared from them. Tenchi started to pick up speed, and its wings closed and opened multiple times like a set of jaws. Kurenai started to backpedal as Tenchi's wings snapped where she would have been a second or two before. The puppet changed its course and continued to pursue her. Kurenai avoided another snap of the wings and got a quick look at Tenchi's body. The puppet's mouth had slid open and outshot a flexible metal rod that was black at the tip, making it look like a foxtail. Kurenai was unable to avoid it fast enough as it wrapped around her ankle and pulled her foot out from under her. Kurenai screamed as Tenchi's wings began to close on her. She closed her eyes and tensed, waiting for the pain of the puppet's spikes and knives to pierce her flesh. But no pain came. Kurenai opened her eyes to see Tenchi's wings had stopped moving, mere inches from pricking her. She heard a chuckling from behind her. Kurenai tilted her head backwards and scowled when she saw Naruto chuckling at her. That's quite a scream you've got there, Kurenai-san. He commented before moving his fingers, making Tenchi's wings raise up and away from her. The blades and spikes retracted back into their seals before Naruto sealed Tenchi back into its scroll. He helped her up and kissed her hand, eliciting an ooh and some giggles from the observing shinobi. Nice fighting you, Kurenai-san. Naruto thanked her. Face red, Kurenai retreated into the watching Nin until he couldn't see her. Well done, Naruto. We'll let you rest for a moment before you continue your test, Sarutobi said to him. Naruto shook his head. No, I'd rather continue now. I mean, if you were fighting with some enemy shinobi, do you think they'd let you rest after you just killed one of their comrades until you were ready to continue? Naruto asked. Several of the spectators murmured in agreement. Sarutobi was looking thoughtful. Very well then. Anko, you're up, Sarutobi called. The purple-haired kunoichi skulked out from the crowd and stood casually before Naruto. Just a warning, kid. I'm a lot more ruthless than Kurenai, Anko warned him. Naruto didn't seem to be affected. Just a warning, Anko-san. I was holding back when I fought Kurenai-san, Naruto shot back. Anko raised an eyebrow for a second, but her confident smirk returned quickly. Second match, Hajime, the Hokage called. Anko began the match by sprinting straight forwards. She began to attack Naruto fiercely. So fiercely, in fact, that the blonde almost couldn't keep up with her. Anko got a kick to Naruto's stomach under his guard, and snapped off an uppercut to his jaw. Naruto flipped through the air and managed to land on his feet. He growled before he went through about 10 seals. Futon, Furioden no Jutsu, Naruto shouted. He exhaled a blast of visible air which took the form of a whitish dragon with glowing red eyes. Said dragon made a shrieking noise as it thundered towards Anko. The kunoichi dodged the dragon, but it started to follow her. Anko got cut a few times before the dragon dissipated. Unfortunately, she didn't know any medical jutsu, and Naruto had forced her into a tight spot. 1. She was in between a cluster of dense trees and brush, making it very hard to maneuver. 2. He had somehow set several Jibaku Fuda around the clearing. Kasei, Naruto commanded, forming a ram seal. Anko barely managed to pull off a kawarimi in time to save her ass from being cooked. Naruto stood still, straining his senses. He knew that he couldn't beat that freaky chick so easily. Before he could sense her, Anko was behind him with a kunai to his throat. "You lose, Naruto," she said quietly. Naruto simply shook his head and chuckled softly. "What the hell's so funny?" she demanded. "You're delusional, that's what's so funny," Naruto answered. Anko felt something grab her leg. It felt like it was made of metal, but Anko didn't have time to dwell on whatever it was felt like. It lifted her up and threw her into a tree. Anko weakly raised herself onto her elbows and glared at Naruto. The thing that had grabbed her was protruding from the back of his cloak. It looked like a metal fox tail. "What the hell?" Anko muttered. Naruto heard her, and 3 more tails drifted out. "Well, Anko, this is Yan. It's my personal body armor and a set of skewers, all combined into one great puppet," Naruto said giddily. Anko raised herself up and got into a stance. Naruto swung his arm, and one of Yan's tails swung at her. Anko ducked the swipe, and had to flip through the air to avoid a second slash. She had to do a bridge dodge to avoid getting stabbed in the gut by the pointy end of one of the tails. "Katon, go Katon!" came a shout. Anko's eyes widened as she barely dodged the ball of super concentrated fire-natured chakra. Even though the Gokaden was an A-rank jutsu, it wasn't the most intimidating-looking technique. It simply looked like a glowing, yellowish-orange ball of chakra about the size of an average person's fist. But when the ball hit something, it blew anything within 20 feet of it to flaming smithereens. Naruto and Anko watched the ball fly past them and explode against the waterfall. A huge bank of mist was formed as a copious amount of water was evaporated. Anko quickly turned back to Naruto, intending to end this quickly. "Sanaijushu," Anko said quietly. 4 snakes launched at Naruto, who was still admiring the work that his Gokaden had done. He gave a little grunt of surprise when the snakes wrapped around him, restraining his movement and his tails. Anko reeled him in and held another kunai to his neck. "This time, I win," Anko said confidently. Naruto's face was impassive until it started to fall off. "What the hell?" Anko shouted inwardly. Her neglect cost her dearly. 4 extra arms shot out of the cloak and wrapped around her arms and legs. By now, all of the cover had fallen off to reveal a rather grotesque-looking puppet. It had 2 bug-like eyes and a mop of hair, and its face was triangular in shape. Like Tenchi, it was clad in a dark goldenrod robe. Its 6 arms had pincer-like hands which clamped down onto her wrists and ankles, restraining her completely. "Correction, Anko, I win again," said Naruto, emerging from the ground. All of the audience was looking at him expectantly. "Well, I suppose that you want to know about this puppet too. His name is Sasoriza, and he was my first puppet. Out of my 54 puppets, not including Yan, he's one of the 5 that I didn't fight and defeat." Naruto told the crowd and his opponent, all of whom sucked in a breath or raised their eyebrows. Naruto had 54 puppets. "What do you mean, you defeated your puppets? You said something about Tenchi being a Hoshi Jounin before," Kurenai pointed out, confused like the rest of the spectators. Naruto smirked at her, in a sick sort of way. "What I meant was, after I slew the original Tenchi, I turned him into a puppet," Naruto explained. Even the Hokage gasped. That was a cruel fate for anybody. But using people as puppets has an advantage to using plain wood and metal puppets. Because 1, they can have their chakra circulatory systems preserved, thereby allowing them to use jutsu. And 2, if the puppet is made of a shinobi with a Kekkei Genkai, say the ability to use Hayatan Jutsu, they retain that Kekkei Genkai which the puppet user can make use of. Other than that, using Hidokugutsu is a far more productive way to get rid of a body you don't want left around, Naruto pointed out. 1 or 2 of the Jounin nodded in agreement. Naruto's solution to disposing of a corpse made sense. "Back to business," Naruto muttered. Anko watched Sasoriza's mouth open and a small tube extend from it. "Sweet dreams, Anko-chan," Naruto said tauntingly as he moved his fingers oddly again. A tiny puff of a whitish gas floated out of Sasoriza's mouth and into Anko's face. She inhaled a tiny bit of it, and immediately started to feel sleepy. Mere seconds later, Anko slumped, unconscious. Naruto picked her up with Yan and set her gently down on a smooth rock. "I just hit her with some chloroform. She'll be back up in an hour or 2, Naruto explained to the crowd. "Well, congratulations, Naruto. You are now officially a genin of Konoha." Sarutobi beamed. He reached into the pocket of his robe and withdrew a black-clothed Hittite. Naruto accepted it with a giant smile. "Arigato, Ojizen," Naruto said, with a single tear running down his cheek. He looked at the assembled Jounin, and his eyes came to rest on Hatake Kakashi. His eyes narrowed and then widened when he recognized the little orange book that the scarecrow-like man was reading. I saw Rinnegan reading that book once. What was it called? Iwa Ika Paradise. That's it. Naruto shuddered at what he had read within the sacred pages of that unholy tome. That makes me wonder. Naruto turned his gaze back to Sarutobi while retrieving his hat with the chakra string. Ojizen, can I fight Kakashi-san anyways? Naruto asked. Kakashi put his book down in interest, and a few of the jounin gave him odd looks. Well, I don't see why not. Sarutobi shrugged. Naruto grinned slyly as he faced Kakashi. Kakashi tensed. He didn't like that grin. Final match, Hajime. Sarutobi called. Kakashi lifted up his Hitai to reveal. A Sharingan, eh? I haven't seen one of those in 2 years. Naruto commented. Both of Kakashi's eyes widened. You've seen Uchiha Itachi? Where? When? He asked frantically. Like I said, I saw him about 2 years ago, so I doubt he'll still be in Saigekyo now, Naruto said to the copy ninja. But now isn't the time to be discussing old news about Nuke Nin. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen or so Narutos popped into existence. Kakashi got into a battle stance. His Sharingan was good, but he still couldn't tell the difference between a Kage Bunshin and the original. Impressive, Naruto, but don't think that this is going to be enough, Kakashi warned him lazily. All of the Naruto clones smirked. That's why I'm doing this, one of the Bunshin said before all of them were obscured by smoke. Kakashi's heart was starting to beat faster. The smoke lifted to reveal dozens upon dozens of naked, well-endowed blonde women. The remaining smoke covered their more intimate areas, but Kakashi didn't look there. He was caught up in heaven. Come play with us, Kakashi-kun. You're so handsome, Kakashi-kun. Kakashi-kun, can you give me a massage? Were some of the things that the grabby blondes squealed and cooed as they latched onto him. The copy ninja, along with every other male in the training ground, rocketed into the air, propelled by twin geysers of blood from their noses. All of the kunoichi were either glaring at Naruto, or roaring with laughter. The blonde women disappeared in puffs of smoke, leaving Naruto standing there, holding Kakashi's book. Yada! Harem no Jutsu, successful! Naruto announced, doing a little heel click. The males were starting to recover, and groaned at the absence of the harem of blonde beauties. Kakashi flew for the book Naruto was holding like it was his firstborn son. Naruto dropped it before the scarecrow knocked him down like a bowling pin. The blonde began to snicker when Kakashi started to open the book. What's so funny, Naruto? Kakashi asked. Open the book to the page you were on. Naruto replied, tying his Hitai around his neck and walking away while replacing his hat on his head. Kakashi opened the book and saw a small clay flatworm on the page. Katsu! Came Naruto's cry. Kakashi threw down his book as it went up in flames. Damn you, Naruto! Was heard through Konoha. Female and male laughter was heard afterwards. Over the next week, Naruto reacquainted himself with Konoha. The place that he found first was Ichiraku Ramen. Tuchi and Ayam were overjoyed to have Naruto as a customer again. They were even happier when he cleared them out, completely. The next place Naruto found was the art shop. The proprietor of the shop was ecstatic when Naruto bought almost half of his clay, and the high-quality shit too. The third order of business was getting a place to stay. Having been part of a dangerous shinobi band for the past 3.5 years, Naruto had a hell of a lot of cash on him from taking missions, killing competition, and robbing daimyos. Naruto found himself a place quite quickly. It was a 2-room apartment. Nothing too fancy though. One thing Sasori and Deidara had told him was not to stand out too much. Naruto listened to this principle, but could not help but put a little bit of flair in whatever he did. In this case, he designed his apartment like a classic bachelor's pad. He had red sheets on his bed with a leopard print blanket. He installed several different colored lights in his bedroom and living room attachment, which would be able to set a really intimate mood. The lights were also activated when he clapped his hands twice. He painted his living room floor the color of the stones in a Zen garden, and placed a lamp here, and a bonsai tree there. Once he was finished painting the walls the color of a sundown, yellowish at the bottom, changing to dark blue as it got higher, Naruto stocked his cupboards with food, mainly ramen. It was completely quiet as the figure slipped stealthily through the night. No Anbu had detected him, and neither had any other ninja. His mission was simple: assassinate the Kyuubi kid. The apartment was on the lower middle-class side of town. He crawled silently over the side of the building, his clothing not standing out in the slightest. The window of the Kyuubi kid's apartment was unlocked, so he had no problem getting in. As he slunk in like a snake, he felt his leg brush against something. He froze when he saw that the floor had objects such as lamps and flora everywhere. Had the kid planned for something like this, Or was it just a coincidence? Regardless, the assassin simply activated his Byakugan to avoid any pesky interference. Hayatari would not be pleased if he failed this mission. He gulped as he imagined his wife and 3 children being tortured at the hands of his main family brother. No! He had to concentrate on the mission. That was what was important. He reached the door that was most likely the bedroom. He jiggled the doorknob very lightly, only to find that it was locked. Thanking Kami for his impeccable chakra control, he formed a small needle of chakra which he jammed into the locking mechanism. He heard a small click as the door unlocked. He slid it open very slowly, silently thanking his target for keeping the hinges well oiled. He scanned the room to find the Kyuubi brat sound asleep on his bed by the far end of the room. He deactivated his Byakugan when he saw that the kid wasn't moving. Silent as a shadow, he withdrew a long kunai that was more like a 30-centimeter dagger and crept toward his target's bed. This was it. He rammed the kunai into where the boy's heart would be. But all he felt was something like wood and metal. Nice try, pal. The assassin whipped around to see the fully clothed Uzumaki Naruto standing by the closet with his arms crossed and a scowl on his face. How? The Hyuga assassin asked. There was a seal on my window, which triggered a silent alarm in a seal on my arm. Naruto explained, pulling his sleeve back and revealing a glowing red kanji that read alarm. I'll ask you nicely once, Naruto began. Who sent you? He finished. The assassin tried to rush at the calm kid and juken him to death, but felt a strong pull on his right arm. He looked back to see some sort of cable wrapped around his arm. Letting his eyes travel further up the cable, he saw that it was one of many, connected to the head of someone or something in the bed. It had a brownish face that looked almost like a snake. The figure had several thick cables extending from its head. It had a pair of metal snake heads protruding from its sleeves, along with its arms. The rest of the figure was covered by a dark goldenrod robe. This is Hibi, assassin. He was my 43rd puppet. He'll be the one I torture you with until you tell me what I want to know, Naruto said before he started to torture the assassin. The blonde had to admit, this Hyuga could take a lot of pain. After Naruto broke every one of his fingers, both of his arms, smashed his ribs, and cut one of his toes off, he still hadn't said anything. It was only when Naruto freed him of his pants, and was holding a knife to the Hyuga's pride and joy, did he talk. He had been sent by Hyuga Hayatari of the main family to assassinate the Kyuubi brat. Naruto grew so pissed when the Hyuga used that moniker that he broke the Hyuga's jaw with a punch. He healed it quickly, asking where Hayatari was located. After he got the answers he needed, Naruto spared him by throwing him out of his apartment. The blonde then jumped out the window and flew off towards the high-class part of town on a large clay dragonfly. Hyuga Hayatari was about to pay dearly. Hyuga Hayatari was sitting in his study recliner, enjoying a cup of sake. He was waiting impatiently for his brother, Hyuga Haikes, to return with the Kyuubi brat's head. His brother never took this long on a local assassination mission before, not that he was worried. Haikes had never failed a mission yet. He was not considered to be the strongest member of the branch family, but he was at least in the lower to middle end of the top 10. No matter how powerful the Kyuubi brat had grown in 6 years, he still couldn't stand up to a Hyuga's might. Right. Hayatari was ever so slightly startled when there was a gentle knock on the door. Enter, he said tonelessly. The door opened to reveal a young female messenger from the branch family. Hayatari-san. She addressed him with a polite bow. Haike-san awaits you in the garden, she told him before quickly departing the room. Hayatari put down his sake saucer and got out of his chair, striding towards the Hyuga garden. The garden was almost like a small forest, just with fewer trees and more zen objects. Hayatari strode into the middle of the garden, but saw neither hide nor hair of his little brother. Otuto, wherefore art thou, Otuto? Hayatari thought, a tiny grin flitting across his face at the bad use of legendary literature. His tiny moment of reveling in his poor sense of humor cost the feminine man dearly. A clay octopus dropped from the sky and latched onto his head. As he tried to pry it off, an unbelievably strong electrical current coursed through his body. Once the octopus fell off, Hayatari fell to his hands and knees, panting heavily as his heart fibrillated. About 3 minutes later, he was able to summon enough strength to raise himself to his feet. As he lifted his head, he saw a figure in front of him. As he activated his Byakugan, he recognized it as the Kyuubi brat. Before he could move, some sort of tentacle extended from beneath the boy's cloak and launched itself at him. Hayatari coughed up gouts of blood as the tentacle-like object skewered him through the solar plexus. Let this be a reminder, Hyuga team, Naruto whispered sinisterly, walking slowly up to the dying Hyuga. Do not oppose me, or face the consequences. Not that you're gonna live long enough to convey that warning to the rest of your wretched kind, Naruto added. Hayatari was about to speak, but the blood in his throat prevented him from doing so. If you're wondering what I'm gonna do now, I'll tell you. You are going to join my puppet collection, whether you like it or not. Naruto explained coldly. Mere seconds later, Hyuga Hayatari was no more. Naruto smirked before he leaped into the air. He landed softly on his dragonfly, and whisked silently off into the night. Over the next 2 months, Naruto refamiliarized himself with Konoha. A few of the villagers were wary of him, because of the fox images on his Sengoku cloak. He also saw a few of the soon-to-be genin in that time span. All of the male academy students looked up to him, demanding to know how he defeated Sasuke so easily. Naruto simply replied the same way every time. I work out, get plenty of rest, eat my vegetables, make some poisons, that stuff. He also never gave out his name, simply preferring the nickname Fox. The Uchiha's fan club hated him for almost killing their Sasuke-kun, but Naruto simply let off a couple of bombs every time they started to pester him. This always drove the weaklings off, and unfortunately, resulted in the amputation of a couple of them. Naruto didn't worry at all, they couldn't sue him, because the bitches didn't even know his name. Sasuke himself had also sought him out. He had seen Naruto standing on the running water of a stream, and his face was positively red with anger when he called Naruto over. Flashback. What the hell do you want, Uchiha? I was in the middle of an exercise. Naruto snapped. He angled his mouth into a frown, not bothering with his eyes. With his ever-present straw hat on, nobody had seen enough of his face to be able to identify him. I want you to teach me how to fight like you did when you surprised me back at the academy. Sasuke asked. Well, demanded. Naruto didn't move for a moment. And why would I do that? Naruto asked after a pause. I thought you were an Avenger type. Why ask someone like me for help? I thought Avengers worked alone. Naruto pointed out. Sasuke clenched his fists and bit his lip in anger. This idiot was turning his dude against him. That doesn't matter. Teach me how to use that thing that you did, Sasuke said again, raising his voice. Naruto scratched his chin, looking as though he were thinking. No, he said after a moment, turning and striding back out on the water. Why the hell not? Sasuke demanded loudly. Naruto sighed. This guy couldn't take a hint and leave. For 3 reasons, actually. 1. You need to have practiced the arts from a very early age in order to be able to use them effectively as a shinobi. 2. My arts are sacred. I promised my Nizans that I would not betray their trust by teaching their arts to inferiors. And 3. I just don't like you. Naruto explained. He smirked when Sasuke began to twitch. Naruto cut the Uchiha off as he opened his mouth to speak. Nothing you can say will change my mind, Uchiha. So save the air that you are a waste of. Naruto spat before he jumped off into the trees. Sasuke screamed in frustration before setting fire to a large area around him. Flashback, Kai. Over the 2-month period, Naruto also took on a couple of missions. The first 2 missions were simply lower to middle C-rank missions where he had to deliver a document, or a parcel, to another country. His main objective was to keep the document safe on its travel. On both his missions, he ran into minor opposition. The first time, it was simply a small group of bandits. Naruto quickly defeated them with a simple Doton, Retsuda Tensho. On the second mission, he encountered a C-rank Nukenin from Konoha, Aoi Saramaru. This battle proved to be a little more difficult. Naruto actually had to use one of his puppets to defeat the blue-haired man. And not just any puppet. The puppet in particular was Hyuga Hayatari. Naruto had finished converting the Hyuga about a week before his second mission. He had dressed the Hyuga in a pale lavender robe, which was just a little darker than the Byakugan. He had put very few armaments on Hayatari, seeing as the puppet could still use the Juken. But being able to use the Juken was tricky, as Naruto didn't possess the bloodline. To remedy this predicament, Naruto had immediately plopped down at his desk for 5 straight days and nights, and created the Ijo no Jutsu. This technique made a portion of a puppet's chakra travel to Naruto along the string, allowing Naruto temporary access to a puppet's Kekkai Genkai, should they have one. The armaments that Naruto installed into Hayatari were simple. In his chest, where Naruto had stabbed him, he placed a 6-shell grenade launcher. Inside another cavity in the puppet's body, just below the launcher, were 2 spare grenade clips that Naruto put into place when the current one was spent. In Hayatari's sleeves he installed 2 double-edged sword blades that resembled the blade of Kusanagi. And below Hayatari's arms, he sewed 2 more sleeves in before he grafted 2 large, metal scorpion tails to Hayatari's body. They narrowed before they swelled into arrow-like stingers, making the tips harder for the target to dislodge. Naruto returned from his first mission without a scratch, and with a couple of nicks in his cloak the second time. The Hokage had been pleasantly pleased when Naruto brought Saramaru's head back. So pleased, in fact, that he gave Naruto a 10% bonus with the 100,000 Raya bounty on Saramaru's head. When he asked Naruto if he wanted to keep the nuke Nin to turn into a puppet, Naruto declined. Unlike Sasori, he didn't convert every enemy he killed into a puppet. Naruto, after killing one of his foes, debated about turning them into puppets. He would go through the enemy's brain to discern what jutsu they knew, and carefully evaluated how said enemy would be beneficial as a puppet, compared to his others. If the possible puppet to be could be more useful than one of his current puppets, Naruto converted it into a puppet and discarded the old one. If not, he simply blew it up. This was the reason Naruto had only 55 puppets and Sasori had almost 300. But despite it being the only puppet that was not a human corpse, Naruto could not bring himself to give up Sasoriza. He supposed it was for sentimental value, seeing as the six-armed humanoid was his first puppet. It was about a month after Naruto killed Saramer that the genin batch that contained Sasuke graduated. Naruto watched from a tree as the genin performed the three absolutely pathetic necessary jutsu, Kawarimi, Henge, and Bunshin. Although almost 30 kids graduated, Naruto figured that only about 9 or 10 would be successful. Over the next couple of weeks, Naruto was amused by the sights of the few remaining indignant genin doing the chores that were D-rank missions. He didn't know why, but he helped Kurenai's team catch a particularly elusive cat one day when the Inuzuka boy called Kiba started cussing up a storm as the cat slipped from his grasp. The Hyuga girl almost fainted when she saw a metal foxtail shoot out of the trees and wrap around the cat. Kurenai raised an eyebrow when Naruto jumped out of the trees and chucked the cat at them. "This wasn't your mission," she said calmly. "I've got sensitive ears," Naruto retorted, glaring at Kiba. Before any of them could say another word, Naruto had jumped off again. About 2 weeks later, Naruto received a summons from the Hokage. The summons said that he would be accompanying a genin team on an upper C-rank mission. Sighing, he rolled up the scroll and sank into the floor, teleporting himself to the Hokage's office. Naruto rose out of the floor in front of the genin team. The kunoichi cried out in alarm as Naruto rose from the floor like a demon straight out of hell. Naruto calmly observed the team he would be accompanying. The jounin looked like Ojaizen, minus about 50 years. Like his superior, he had a beard and a smoke hanging from his mouth. The larger member of the team was obviously an Akimichi. He wore a green jacket, with a tan shirt underneath with the kanji 4 foot on it, and brown shorts. He had on a hittite that allowed 2 horns of hair to stick out from his head. In his bandaged hand was a bag of Korean spiced potato chips. The second member of the team was a lazy-looking boy with a pineapple-style hairdo. He wore a fishnet shirt, a gray vest, and brown pants. The look on his face said clearly that he would rather be in bed than in the Hokage's office right now. The kunoichi of the team was definitely an eye-catcher. But while fair-looking, she was murder on the ears. The way she had cried out in surprise when Naruto Hiru Banshodi into the office was almost enough to break his eardrums. She wore a 2-piece purple dress with full-body bandages underneath. By her fragile figure and well-groomed platinum blonde hair, Naruto could tell that she was a fangirl kunoichi. At first glance, Naruto was reminded of someone important, but he couldn't remember who. Her light blue, black-rimmed eyes contained anger as her mouth moved a mile a minute. Naruto shook his head when he realized she was yelling at him. "You're that guy that hurt Sasuke-kun a while back. Hokage-sama. Why is this kid here? He's evil. He attacked Sasuke-kun for no reason," she shrieked. Naruto pressed his fingers to the bridge of his nose and lowered his head. "Is this true, Naruto?" Sarutobi asked. His eyes showed surprise, but they were narrowed. "No, Blondie here's exaggerating. Sasuke willingly accepted fighting me, and he lost. All I did was hit him with a poison knife then cure him again. Then I almost blew him up when he tried to attack me, unprovoked," Naruto explained. The blonde girl gaped at him. "I am more inclined to believe Naruto, Ino-chan." Sarutobi quickly cut Ino off just as she was about to start another rant. "Well anyways, what's the mission, Ojaizen?" Naruto asked. Behind him, the jounin chuckled. Only he and his nephew Konohamaru could get away with calling the Hokage an old man, and even he still got reamed for it sometimes. "You are here, Naruto, to accompany Team 10 on their upper C-rank mission," the wrinkled old man began. "Your objective is to retrieve a very old, very valuable document from Amigakure." "What?" "Steal it, is what you mean," Naruto interrupted. 5 sets of eyes focused on him. Anytime a high-ranking official says that they want you to retrieve something, it means that they want you to steal it. I know, because for the past 3 years, my Nizans and I have had to steal dozens of documents. And every person has said the same thing, retrieve this. Naruto explained. There was a rather pregnant pause after Naruto finished his rant. "Okay, yes, I want you to steal it. What it is a stock certificate from one of the first international companies ever conceived in the old world. Do any of you know what that company was?" the Hokage asked like a professor to his students. Naruto raised his hand. Naruto? The professor asked the cloaked boy. The Dutch East India Trading Company. Naruto answered. Sarutobi nodded. Good. Correct. Anyways, this document is the first and only one of its kind. I believe its approximate value is 17.62 billion rai. Ino gasped. The lazy boy's mouth fell open a fraction, the fat kid dropped his chips, and the Jounin's eyes widened. Naruto whistled. That was one pricey document. Whistle is right, Naruto. Your objective is to retrieve this document in any way you can, without letting the AIM forces know that you are from Konoha. The document is located inside the Amigekyo no Sato Museum. It is usually guarded heavily by traps such as chakra sensors, death traps, and shinobi. It is always put in a large titanium, seal-covered bunker at night time. If anyone tried to break into the bunker, the seals would activate multiple high-powered explosives, incinerating the thieves. That is why you must complete this mission during the daytime. Your time frame is 1 week. Sarutobi explained to them. Team 10 bowed respectfully, and turned to leave the office. Naruto was rooted in his place. Everyone looked at him, but he paid them no mind, as several different scenarios were going through his mind. Swinging priest? Not enough people. Crazy Larry? Not enough people. Soft shoulder? Not enough people. Baker's dozen? We've got the woman, but not enough people. Hell in a handbasket? I can't train a cat that quickly. And not enough people. Wait a second. I remember who Ino looks like now. That's it, was Naruto's train of thought as he turned his eyes to the Hokage. Ojaizen, the authorities in AIM wouldn't happen to know Fukuheim, would they? Naruto asked, seemingly out of the blue. Everybody looked confused as to why Naruto was referring to a daimyo's daughter. I think they know of her. Why do you ask? Sarutobi asked him. Well, I just thought of a way to get close to the document without too much suspicion arising. It's a method that thieves call a looky-loo. What you're supposed to do is find someone who resembles another person of high authority. In Ino's case, she will dress up and pretend to be Fukuheim, because they pretty much look identical, with us as her guards. The method used in conjunction with the looky-loo is called a bundle of joy. This means that Ino will have to pretend to be pregnant and go into labor when we approach the document. When all attention is on her, I will swipe the document for a fake, and nobody will know the wiser. Naruto explained. Everybody looked a little stunned. Naruto, the Sandaime began. That is such a crazy idea, I'm inclined to think that it may work. Yuki-chan, fetch me some formal female robes. Sarutobi addressed his sexy female secretary. You will leave at the North Gate in 1 hour. Gather any supplies that you will need for a maximum 2-week-long mission. Dismissed. The 5 shinobi bowed respectfully to their leader. 4 of them used the door. 1 of them sank through the floor. It was the end of a long day of traveling, and the group of 5 shinobi were just inside of the Fire Country's borders, about half of the way to AIM. They were sitting in a small clearing, lit by a mid-sized fire. Naruto was roasting a marshmallow, completely still, except for his hand that was turning his skewer. Ino was staring around randomly, although she occasionally let her gaze flit over to Naruto. Shikamaru was staring up at the stars. Chuji was munching on another bag of chips. And Asuma was having his 9th smoke of the day. There was almost no sound, except for the crackling of the flames, and the occasional noise of a passing animal. Naruto? Ino asked quietly. Naruto jumped a little bit at the sudden break in the silence. Chuji was looking a little miffed, as was Shikamaru. Asuma had put out his cigarette as well. Yes, Ino? Naruto asked, popping his marshmallow into his mouth. He chewed for a moment before swallowing and giving the girl his attention. I was wondering, Ino began. She trailed off and began to tap her fingers together. Oh geez, she's pulling a Hinata. The world must be coming to an end. Asuma thought. What was that thing that you used to stab Sasuke-kun? Ino asked in a small voice. All attention, even Shikamaru's, was now placed on Naruto. Naruto was calmly looking at Ino, or, at least they thought he was. None of them could see under his straw hat. Now, Ino, where would be the benefit in me telling you that? I mean, say we have to fight each other someday, for whatever reason, like a promotional exam or something. How fair would it be if you knew how I fought, but I didn't know how you did? Naruto asked. Ino looked understanding, but a little put out at the same time. Shikamaru was still looking at him. Well, could you at least tell us what that thing was? He drawled. Naruto shifted his head to the Nara. Okay, say that again with less enthusiasm. Well, Shika, what Sasoriza is a Naruto cut himself off abruptly, freezing like a statue. He began to look around the clearing slowly, sniffing the air every now and then. What is it, Naruto? Asuma asked, readying his trench knives. The genin were looking wary. We're being watched. Naruto hissed, standing up slowly. He was still for a moment, and then he raised his head. Okay, get your ass out here, you giant cactus. Naruto called to the wind. Everyone was looking at him as though he were crazy, until a voice floated back. Humph. You spoiled the thrill of the hunt, Naruto-kun, said a robotic tone in katakana before it changed to a regular one that spoke in kanji and kana. Team 10's genin almost pissed themselves when a greenish creature stepped out of the side of a tree. What little of its body that wasn't covered by a dark green traveling cloak was encased in something that resembled the jaws of a Venus flytrap. It was open near the top, revealing the person's face. There were two halves to his face, one black and one white. A mop of green hair covered the person's head, and his yellow, pupilless eyes gazed hungrily at the shinobi. Naruto sighed resignedly. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Zetsu. He's an S-rank nuke from Kusugakure, and a contact of mine. Zetsu, this is Yamanaka Ino, Nara Shikamaru, Akimichi Chuji, and Sarutobi Asuma. Naruto introduced the parties to each other. The genin and jounin were silent. The blonde one looks tasty, Zetsu drawled, licking his lips. But the big one has more meat on him. The robotic voice replied. Yes, but her meat is more firm. The regular voice shot back. The big one has more fat, which increases the flavor of the flesh. The robotic tone snapped in reply. Blonde. Big. Blonde. Big. Blonde. Big. The two voices kept arguing over who would be tastier. Naruto was giggling quietly at the shocked faces of his fellow cohorts. Zetsu has a split personality. The black half of him speaks in katakana, and the white half speaks in kanji and kana. I guess they're arguing about which of you would be tastier. Naruto explained. Ino and Chuji's mouths dropped. He's a cannibal? Chuji whispered, looking horrified. Ino couldn't form words as she listened to the plant man argue back and forth. Yep. But don't worry, if you're with me, he won't eat you. I mean, sure he'll take a bite or two, but nothing serious. Naruto said nonchalantly. What little color was in their faces left it. Naruto fell to the ground, clutching his sides, and rolling around in laughter. Oh, you should have, seen your faces. That snort was frickin' priceless. Naruto whispered out. After he regained himself, and dodged Ino's blow to his head, he heard the telltale sounds of Zetsu still arguing. Hey! Spores for brains! Shut the hell up! Naruto shouted. Zetsu stopped arguing and chuckled sheepishly. Sorry, Naruto-kun. Zetsu apologized. Anyways, why are you here? Naruto asked. Zetsu looked a little shiftily at the group before one of the teeth on his plant attachments pointed to the top of the cliff that was not too far away. Naruto got the message and sank into the ground with Zetsu as he said, I'll be right back. Okay, Zetsu, what's the problem? Naruto asked the plant-like man while sitting atop the cliff. Beside him, Zetsu was silent for a few seconds before he sighed. Well, I came here to warn you, Naruto-kun. Zetsu began. About what? The puppet master asked, all of his attention now on the Kusa Nuke. I recently got wind of a new, rather mysterious organization. They are calling themselves the Akatsuki. This organization is composed of several extremely dangerous S-rank nuke from varying countries. Zetsu continued. Naruto allowed his eyes to widen a little bit at this juicy little tidbit of information. Anybody we know? Naruto asked, fervently hoping that his question would be answered in a negative. He felt a little pain as he imagined Deidara, Sasori, or Itachi joining the Akatsuki. No. Zetsu answered. Naruto let out a breath he had been holding in. But none of these ninjas should be taken lightly. I myself would be hard-pressed to defeat any one of them. Zetsu warned him. Who are some of the members that you know of, if any? Naruto asked. Well, I know of only two members. The first is Hoshigaki Kisame of Kirigakure. He is a highly experienced swordsman who was forced to flee after he failed to assassinate the water daimyo. The second member I know of is called Kakuzu. He was from Takigakure, and left for an unknown reason. I know that he can extend his life indefinitely by ripping out the hearts of his foes, and taking them as his own. Zetsu reeled off the information he had on the two known members of the Akatsuki. Naruto felt a small tingle of fear run up his spine. What do the Akatsuki members look like? He asked quietly, looking up at the quarter moon. Kisame and Kakuzu, or just the members in general? In general. Well, they dress similar to your Sengaku. Their cloaks look the same, but are decorated with red clouds instead of the animals that you three associate yourselves with. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that they also wear unique rings. I only saw Kisame and Kakuzu wearing them, so I'm not entirely certain if all of the members will wear them. But I know for a fact that they travel in groups of 2. Zetsu answered. Do you have any idea what they want? The bomb user asked. The 9 bijou. Zetsu answered. Naruto's face paled. Shit! He whispered. Zetsu nodded minusculely. Well, I must be off to tell Daidara-kun, Sasori-kun, and Itachi-kun about this group of nasties. It's good to see you again, Naruto-kun, Zetsu said robotically. You too, Zetsu, Naruto replied as the duo sank into the stone cliff. Team 10 and Naruto reached Amagekyo the following day. When the team had asked Naruto about his little meeting with Zetsu, Naruto simply told them that the plant man wanted some cooking recipes. All of them shuddered as they imagined Zetsu roasting them over a spit while seasoning them with spices. Team 10 and Naruto waited patiently for Ino to get into her robes. When she said that she was ready, Naruto turned around and received the shock of his life. Not only did Ino look like Fukuhime's identical, pregnant twin, she was any guy's fantasy of a royal, blonde bombshell. If not for the pillow that was stuffed down her front, she would have given Naruto a nosebleed. The royal blue robe accentuated her curves just a little bit, but that was good enough. And the dazzling fake diamonds on the lower part of the kimono made her look absolutely exquisite. Well? How do I look? Ino asked, striking a small pose. A little pregnant, but you look great, Naruto answered. Ino scowled. Naruto just ignored it and walked over to the large, mobile throne that he, Deidara, and Sasori had stolen a couple years back. Why they had done it, Naruto had forgotten. He began to lift it up until he noticed that he was the only one trying to. He glared back at Team 10 to see them just standing there and staring at him. Do you three want to help, or do I have to kick your asses? Naruto shouted. Asuma, Chuji and Shikamaru almost jumped out of their skins when Naruto yelled at them. Shikamaru complained that carrying the throne around was troublesome, until Naruto kicked him in the ass and told him to move it. The guards at the Amagekyo gates were immediately on guard when a large, carried throne approached their gates. The 4 managed to get through the gates no problem, but were drawing a lot of attention on the streets. Naruto actually had to launch a few senbon at some of the 2 curious civilians in order to make them go away. They reached the large, angelic white museum after about 5 minutes of beating off civilians. When Ino got out of the carriage, the paparazzi showed up faster than Naruto could say katsu. Naruto almost felt the urge to blow aim up as the annoying people began to bombard them with questions. Asuma actually started swinging, the reporters were so annoying. After about 10 minutes of beating their way through the crowd, Team 10 and Naruto managed to get inside the museum. Ino's hair was a little haggard, and the rest of the group looked rather worn out. Naruto quickly fixed them up, and told Asuma to get into the robes he had stole from a daimyo's personal medic. Of course, he didn't tell them that he had stolen from a daimyo. The party of 5 made their way to the room where the document was held, and eyed it apprehensively. Naruto spotted a single camera in the back right corner of the room. He quickly calculated its angle and position. It was directed straight at the document. Speaking of which, the document was on a pedestal in the center of the room. It was held up by a small stand, and bound by a red ribbon. The parchment was yellowed, almost to the point of being brown. But for being an almost 700-year-old document, it appeared to be in fairly good shape. Naruto told them the procedure of the plan, and where to position themselves. As soon as they were in place, a photographer came in to take pictures of Fukuhime with their document. As Ino and Chuji stood behind the document, Asuma, in his medic nin robes, stood off to their right. Naruto stood behind them with an ordinary scroll under a genjutsu, with a double-layered henge underneath it, making it look like the document for 3 levels. Shikamaru was off to the side, looking like a bored bodyguard. As the photographer started snapping pictures, Ino moved her head minutely to the right to look at Asuma. He scratched his nose, that was the signal. Ino moaned faintly, and fell from her feet. Chuji caught her, and everyone flocked to her side, believing her to be ill. While that was happening, Naruto made his way over, discreetly swiping the document for the fake when he passed in front of the camera's view of the pedestal. He smirked when nobody saw him. Asuma took control of the situation when he picked Ino up and carried her swiftly out of the museum. Naruto swore under his breath when they were stopped by several aimed jounin on their way out. He quickly started to mold some clay and got a grip on one of his scrolls in case this got ugly. As one of them started to search him, one of Yon's tails shot out from under Naruto's cloak and stabbed the jounin in the stomach. Another 2 moved to attack him, but they were skewered as well. The last one was kicked unconscious by Asuma. Ino quickly shrugged off the robes and pillow, revealing that she was wearing her normal purple combat dress underneath it. Great. They must have had genjutsu sensors on the pedestal. Stick close, everyone, this might get ugly. Naruto warned them. Chuji put his chips away, Shikamaru stopped slouching, Ino took out a pair of kunai, and Asuma readied his trench knives. They encountered no more opposition on the way out. The five opened the door and were greeted by a dozen or so jounin. Oh fuck! Naruto swore. He reached into two of the 4 duffel bags on his waist with both hands as one of the jounin addressed them. Intruders, lay down the document, or we will have no choice but to use force. He boomed. Naruto withdrew his hand as his palm mouth chewed on the large amount of clay he had picked up. He reached into one of his pockets and withdrew a red scroll with the kanji for elite on it. He opened the scroll about halfway and poured some chakra into a pair of sealing rings that had the kanji for water and ice on them. There were 2 large blasts of smoke, and Naruto was seen supporting 2 puppets when the smoke dissipated. The first puppet was a woman with silver-white hair and a dark blue robe. From her shoulders, 2 rods with 8 rotor blades stuck out on diagonals. In her right hand was a large, plain-looking cleaver. On her left arm was a Senbon launcher that was exactly like the one on Naruto's. Her fingers were pointed rods that were dipped in poison. The second puppet was a rather feminine man with dark brown hair and a black robe. His right hand had extremely sharp blades for fingers, and the tip of a solid sword could be seen poking out from the puppet's right sleeve. The puppet's left hand had been replaced by 3 metal fingers that opened to look like some sort of black flower with 3 petals, think the Dr. Octopus arms from Spider-Man 2. Along the extended arm were metal strips shaped like shingles that would open up to reveal seals that released hundreds of extra arms of the same kind as the original. Naruto smirked lightly when Team 10 and the AIM jounin eyed his puppets apprehensively. Say hello to Hozuki Mikino and Hayayari, everyone. It's their first time coming out to play in a couple of months, Naruto said, moving his arms and fingers in a complicated manner. The 2 puppets darted forwards, clicking incessantly. Mikino raised her cleaver, and the sword in Hayayari's arm extended. The puppets moved faster than a few of the newer jounin expected, costing them their heads or their livers or spleens. Mikino shot a jounin with a Senbon packet, setting him down for the count. She was turned to block a strike from another shinobi, slicing his arm off in the process. One shinobi managed to get a powerful punch in. It hit Mikino in the chest and went right through her. The jounin's eyes widened when he felt only water on his arm. Whatever thought was about to go through his head next was stopped when his brain was sliced from the rest of his head. The rotors on Mikino's back began to spin. Naruto made her fly through the crowd, dicing up a few of the jounin in the process. Hayayari slashed another jounin across the face. The jounin clutched his sliced eyes and began to scream as the poison took effect. Hayayari's arm was swung, and the sword extended into about 10 fragments that made the cutting radius of the sword about 2.5 meters instead of 1. Of course, as a chain, the blade couldn't slice people in half, but it could still poison people. As a small group of 3 jounin appeared in front of Hayayari, Naruto extended a tube from the Hayaton puppet's chest. There was an audible pop and a ball was ejected from the tube. It exploded, releasing a small amount of water. Naruto started to mold Hayayari's chakra into a field, manipulating the water. It separated into about 50 or so drops of poison water, which elongated and froze into ice needles. Hayaton, Hansatsu Susho, Naruto announced, crossing his arms. The needles shot forward faster than almost any nin could throw, and embedded themselves into the flesh of the 3 AIM nin. There were about 7 more left. Naruto swung his arm in a wave-like motion, and Hayayari's left arm extended right in front of him. The 8 metal tiles on his arm creaked open to reveal seals. Naruto closed his hand and pointed his index finger straight up. The seals activated, releasing hundreds more of the tentacle-like arms. With them were even more arms with seals on them, creating a never-ending river of arms. They spread a little bit as they converged upon the AIM jounin, and they crashed into the ground, creating dozens of loud booms. As the kicked-up dust cleared, Naruto saw that he had impaled all of the remaining jounin. One arm had actually gone through one of the AIM nin's skulls, and came out through his ass. Smirking at the complete and utter carnage he had caused, Naruto retracted the arms into their seals. He chortled a little bit at the floored jaws of Team 10. Come on, we gotta go. That little scuffle's gonna bring the rest of the village down on us, Naruto warned them. As he resealed his puppets, his hand-mouth spat out the large amount of clay he had consumed with them. He started to mold it, and concentrated the chakra. A huge blast of smoke ensued. When it cleared, a huge, stylized, clay dragon was crouched in front of them. Naruto leaped onto its back, and beckoned Team 10 to follow. Once they were secure, the dragon took off. Ino cried out in terror as the dragon shifted beneath her. Shikamaru and Chuji looked like their stomachs were a little unsettled, and Asuma had 3 smokes in his mouth. Naruto just stared on ahead as his dragon began to fly back towards Konoha at a brisk pace for such a large sculpture. His calm was broken when he heard something behind them. Shit! Naruto swore. Approaching them rapidly were several AIM nin, flying on something that he had seen being developed when he was in AIM last year, hoverboards. They were simply round discs with rotors underneath them that ran on a small amount of chakra. Even though the amount of chakra they took to run was small, the boards allowed the nin on them to zip through the skies like swallows. Team 10 saw them as well. Oh great! What the hell do we do now? We're on a giant, flying dragon that's slower than erosion, and they're like kunai launchers. Ino exclaimed. Naruto turned his annoyed gaze to her. Never underestimate my art, Ino! Naruto shot back, turning his dragon around. He pointed at the tail. And one of the large segments disappeared. The dragon's mouth expanded, like it had bitten off a particularly large hunk of flesh from a beast it had slain. Team 10, grab some popcorn, 'cause the fireworks are about to start, Naruto announced as the dragon spat out a smaller dragon that looked a bit like a pig with wings. It flew much faster than their transport dragon, and got in between 3 of the 20 or so jounin that were following them. Katsu! Naruto commanded. Kaboom! The dragon blew up spectacularly, incinerating anything within its 20-meter diameter. 5 of the hoverboards blew up, sending their riders plummeting to the earth about 100 meters below. Naruto cackled madly as the carnage fireworks began. Another segment of the dragon's tail disappeared, and out of the mouth came about 5 large swallows that locked onto and homed in on 5 of the pursuants. These ones are special, Naruto claimed, barely heard over his cloak flapping in the wind. And true to his word, the swallows exploded into about a dozen pieces of shrapnel bombs each. They fell gracefully like a fountain, exploding in the midst of a small clump of shinobi. Naruto heard a couple of screams over the roar of his art. He had to stop reveling in the blasts of glorious artistic genius, as the few remaining AIM nin started to chuck kunai, samban, and poison bombs at them. Naruto actually had to make the dragon do a few barrel rolls, nose dives, and loop-de-loops in order to avoid their transport blowing Team 10 and him straight to hell. Eventually, he and Asuma managed to get rid of their pursuants. Ino breathed a sigh of relief, and Chuji started to binge on chips. That was troublesome, Shikamaru said lazily. Naruto went stiff. We're not out of it yet, he retorted. Before anyone could ask him why he said that, one final hoverboard rose out of the trees below them. The figure on it wore a black and dark purple one-piece jumpsuit. He was a rather feminine man with angular blue eyes and long eyelashes. His dark green, almost blue hair whipped about his face as he followed them. On his back was an umbrella. Naruto got a rather nasty grin on his face when he recognized the fellow from the bingo book. Nice of you to grace us with your miserable ass Rokusho Aoi, Naruto hissed loudly as his dragon stopped in midair. Asuma's eyes widened as he too recognized the Konoha deserter. Seems like someone's wise enough to acknowledge my strength, Aoi said with a large amount of arrogance in his tone. Naruto almost laughed. This dude had no idea who he was dealing with. Is that so? Naruto asked, pulling the document out of his cloak, and slipping a hand into one of his clay pouches. The handful that he pulled out left that bag empty, leaving 3 more pouches of clay at his disposal. Unlike Deidara, Naruto always made sure to bring more clay than was probably necessary, just in case things got dicey. I assume you're here to retrieve the document, Naruto asked rhetorically, waving it in front of him like a pendulum. Naruto, what the hell are you doing? Chuji Whisper yelled. Naruto ignored him. Yeah, I am. Now if you'll be so kind to hand it over, I may let you live, Aoi responded, pulling something from his belt. By the flicker of yellowish energy, Naruto assumed that it was the Night Aim's Raijin sword. Naruto sighed and turned back to Team 10. You guys keep heading for Konoha. I'll catch up to you, he told them. Asuma frowned. What are you planning on doing, Naruto? He asked. Naruto turned away from Aoi and grinned beneath his hat. The one that I have is a fake. Ino, hug me, and reach into my upper left cloak pocket. The real document is in there, Naruto ordered. Ino did as she was told, and even put a fake sob in with it as she discreetly slipped the document out of his pocket. You still haven't answered my question, Naruto, Asuma pointed out. Naruto chuckled quietly. I'm about to show Aoi that art is a bang, Naruto shouted before he did a backwards dive off of the dragon. Everyone on the dragon screamed his name as he fell towards the ground. Aoi, you want the document? Well, come and get it, Naruto roared to the AIM jounin. Like a fat kid to cake, Aoi darted after him. Naruto allowed himself to freefall for a couple more seconds until he was about 30 meters from the ground. He whipped his body about, and tapped into the Kyuubi's chakra. The surge of power entered the sculpture in his palm, making it glow an orangey red. It expanded in a puff of smoke, and Naruto darted back into the air on a stylized, iridescent purple and orange swallow. Aoi stopped his descent and hovered in front of Naruto. "Interesting piece of work you got there, kid," Aoi commented, looking at the glowing swallow that Naruto was standing on. "Well, thank you, Aoi. But let's skip the pleasantries and get with the ass beatings, shall we?" Naruto asked. Aoi smirked. "Yes, let's," Aoi responded, darting forwards. Naruto maneuvered his swallow out of the way before he launched a couple of saban packets at Aoi. He aimed down and dodged them with a small bit of difficulty, and countered with a few kunai and explosive tags. Naruto swerved out of the way, wanting to avoid detonating his demon chakra-enhanced swallow at all costs. Even putting a tiny amount of the Kyuubi's chakra into one of his sculptures made it powerful enough to take out almost half of the Hyuga compound. "Futon, Rankuden!" Naruto commanded, launching several balls of compressed wind chakra at his adversary. Aoi did multiple barrel rolls to avoid the projectiles, and launched a Hosenka no Jutsu back at Naruto. Naruto simply transferred some chakra to his mouth and blew it out, extinguishing the fireballs. His swallow screamed forwards, and Naruto took a swipe at Aoi with one of Yan's tails. Aoi blocked the strike with Raijin, sending a small jolt of electricity up through Naruto's body. The blonde retreated a short distance, and calculated what he should do. "Bombs are out of the question. This guy could be a useful addition to my collection. The major destruction jutsus are the only thing that would probably hit the guy, and the lesser ones would have no effect. I guess that leaves puppets," Naruto mused. He whipped out his yellow scroll, and poured chakra into the seal with the kanji for monster. A small puff of smoke later, Naruto was supporting his largest puppet. The Taki ninja that he had made this puppet from was almost as big as a sumo wrestler. He was so large that Naruto only put a sash around his waist instead of a robe. The puppet's body was huge and muscular, and covered with poisonous spikes. The only other armaments that he had were a kunai launcher in his mouth, a short sword much like a machete in his left hand, and a trio of blades as his right hand. Aoi looked rather intimidated as he regarded the white-haired puppet. "Congratulations, Aoi, you are the first person to face Bakemono in almost 6 months," was all Naruto said before the puppet started its clicking-rich charge. Bakemono brought its right hand back for a swipe, a tiny drip of poison flying off of each blade. Ai retreated, evading the swipe by mere millimeters. Naruto continued to relentlessly attack Aoi with his large puppet. Aoi made the mistake of blocking a punch from Bakemono with the Raijin sword. That one punch shattered the electrical blade like a pane of frail glass. And the force from the punch was so great that Aoi was thrown off of his board and hit his back against a tree. Before he could start falling, 2 kunai were shot through his hands, giving the feminine man the appearance of one who was crucified. "Suetun, Mizu no Yaiba!" Naruto shouted. Before Aoi could suck in a breath of shock, an extremely concentrated jet of water tore through his heart, killing him instantly. Naruto struck a victory pose before resealing Bakemono and Aoi's dead body. He wheeled his glowing swallow around and whizzed off to catch up to Team 10 like a bat out of hell. A day later, Team 10 reported the success of their mission to the Hokage. To Naruto's surprise, they received a consent form which was a nomination for the Chunin exams, which were to be held in 1 month. "But don't I have to be on a team, Ojaizen?" Naruto asked. "None of the other genin teams in Konoha complement your unique skills, Naruto. And besides, I'm certain you will do fine on your own," Sarutobi assured him. Naruto nodded and started to let his mind wander on the topic of promotion as he wandered through Konoha absently. He had just finished buying a little bit more clay and eating about 10 bowls of Ichiraku ramen when he spotted a few foreign shinobi coming through Konoha's open gate. There was a couple of Taki teams, 3 from Suna, and 1 from Kusa. Just as Naruto was about to turn away, another team caught his eye. It was a team of Oto ninja. The 2 males were not who drew his gaze, but the kunoichi. It was Kin. Naruto grinned a little bit as he jumped off of the roof he had been standing on and approached the Oto team. All 3 of them tensed when the stranger in the black cloak with the yellow foxes and the straw hat stopped in front of them. Naruto removed his hat, and Kin's face went immediately from tense to surprise and joy. "Naruto-kun!" she chirped, running forward and glomping the blonde ninja. Naruto smiled gently as he hugged the dark-haired girl back. "Good to see you too, Kin-chan," Naruto whispered. "You know this kid, Kin?" the heavily bandaged hunchback asked. Kin released Naruto and looked back at her teammates. "Dosu Zaku, this is Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto-kun, these are my teammates Kinyuta Dosu and Abumi Zaku." She introduced both parties. Naruto held out his hands, which the Oto nin shook after a second's hesitation. "A pleasure to make your acquaintance," Dosu said politely. "Nice to meet you." Zaku said with a smirk. Mutual, Naruto said shortly. So, what say I show you 3 around my home? Naruto asked. Kin immediately agreed, and Dosu and Zaku saw no problem with Naruto leading them about. The 3 Oto Nin followed the blonde Nin as he showed them around Konoha a little bit. As the party of 4 was strolling casually through the residential district of Konoha, Naruto heard a foreign voice shout. That hurt, Gaki. Naruto sighed and replaced his straw hat on his head. Naruto arrived at the scene of the crime to observe 2 Sunanin, guess who, harassing a small boy that Naruto knew as Sarutobi's grandson. By the large, turd-shaped object on the pajama-clad boy's back, Naruto could tell that he was about to meet a fellow artist. Hey asshole! Zaki yelled. The 2 Sunanin looked up to see Naruto's little group. Put the kid down. And by the way, what's with the makeup and pajamas? Naruto chortled as he watched the kid with the face paint turn red with fury. It's face paint, idiot! He yelled. And why should I put the kid down? You gonna stop me? He asked snidely. In a blink, Naruto had darted forwards and had his catter at the boy's throat. Yan's tails were also pointing at his forehead, his heart, his liver, and his privates. You'll be dead in a second or 2 if you don't listen to us, Naruto warned him. The blonde Kunoichi reached for a fan on her back, but Naruto redirected one of Yan's tails to point at her heart. You too, blondie, he snapped. The black-clad kid dropped the Hokage's grandson roughly, and the child ran off. Naruto just retracted his tails when he felt an extremely powerful wave of killing intent. He heard 5 gasps all around him as a redhead emerged from a tree, upside down. Kankuro, you're a disgrace to our village, he said in a venomous whisper. Chigara, Kankuro stuttered. Gaara cut him off. Silence, or I will splatter this village with your blood, the redhead whispered. Naruto quirked an eyebrow as the redhead eyed him before using Shunshin to appear in front of Naruto with a cloud of sand. Naruto quirked another eyebrow. No human could control sand, save for the Sandame Kazekage. The only being Naruto knew could control sand was Shikaku, Naruto blurted out. Gaara's eyes widened, and his teammates sucked in a breath. How? Gaara whispered, obviously wanting to know how Naruto knew of his inner demon. You look like an insomniac, and can control sand. The only other being that could do that was your Sandame, Naruto explained. Gaara's eyes narrowed. And you are? He asked. Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto answered, letting one of Yan's tails wave about. Gaara stared at the tail, and his mouth fell open a fraction as he recognized what Naruto was telling him. We leave. Come Kankuro, Temari, Gaara commanded. His teammates followed him away, and Naruto's little party watched them go. The Chunin exams would be very interesting this year. Over the course of the next few weeks, Naruto spent as much time with Kin and her team as possible. Whether it was walking with them, training with them, or serving them dinner, it didn't matter. All 3 of them seemed to enjoy his company. Through a single sparring match with each of the 3 Oto shinobi, Naruto deduced that none of them were particularly proficient in taijutsu. But they learned quickly. All 3 of them memorized the basics of the Torken the first time that Naruto taught it to them. Through further analysis, Naruto also discovered that they were somewhat weak in the elemental jutsu area. Based on their origins before becoming Oto shinobi, Kin from AIM, Dosu from Taki, and Zaku from Kyumo, Naruto was able to teach them a few jutsu based on their probable elemental affinities. True to his assumptions, Kin and Dosu lapped up the Suiton jutsu he taught them, and Zaku was able to learn a couple of right-un jutsu with some difficulty. Already formidable, Naruto speculated that Kin's team was definitely Chunin material when he was through with them. Said exams were fast approaching, and Naruto had been working on his speed in taijutsu, should he be unable to use his bombs or puppets. He had worked on his own taijutsu style, and requested help from several random jounin and ANBU whom he had impressed when fighting against Kurenai, Anko and Kakashi. When training with them, Naruto had gained a grasp on the Goken style, but knew that he was still rather weak in that area, so the style would be of little use. It was only when Kakashi offered to teach him something that Naruto began to speculate that he was somehow descended from a high and mighty of some clan. Imagine his shock when he learned that he was the son of the person who had sealed the Kyuubi into him, Namake's Minato, the Yandame Hokage. When Naruto started to get a nasty look on his face, Sarutobi told him that it was best not to dwell on what had already passed. Naruto's mood was lightened somewhat when his grandfather figure said that his mother, Uzumaki Kushina, was quite possibly still alive. From then on, the newly titled Namake's Naruto made it his life mission to find his mother, if she was still alive, by any means necessary. It was 3 weeks after Naruto had finished his mission with Team 10, and he was calmly ambling over to the Konoha Academy where the first part of the exams would be held. Several other ninja filtered in with Naruto, casting wary glances at him, to which he paid no heed. One flight of stairs up, there was a queue of genin, trying to force entry to a door that read 301, which was being blocked by two unusually large genin. Naruto scoffed at the pathetic genjutsu that had been used. While he had been training with Itachi for the short time that he had been with them, Deidara had developed a way to train his left eye to dispel genjutsu. Naturally, he had taught Naruto and Sasori how to do the same. As he slunk silently up the stairs, he heard Sasuke's arrogant voice demand that the genjutsu be dispelled. Naruto rolled his eyes. Itachi's words about Sasuke's mouth being the death of him seemed to be growing more accurate by the second. The room that the examinees were to wait in was packed with almost 200 shinobi and kunoichi, give or take a few. A few of them turned to stare as the self-proclaimed artist entered the room. A ripple of murmurs went around the room as several of the assembled ninja probably recognized his Sengaku cloak. Naruto simply leaned against the wall and stared calmly at the competition from beneath his straw hat. He was later amused by the sight of Ino jumping onto the rather disheveled Uchiha's back. Naruto's immediate guess was that Sasuke had picked a fight with the wrong person. As soon as Ino was finished squealing Sasuke-kun, the pink-haired girl who had yelled at him back at the academy all that time ago started to yell at her. Chuji and Shikamaru noticed him and waved or nodded in his direction. They were unable to say anything to him over the racket that Ino and the newly dubbed Pinky were making. "Sheesh, will you rookies pipe down? You're driving half of the examinees in here absolutely bats hit," said an unfamiliar voice. Naruto turned to see an older boy in a purple tunic and pants approaching the 9 genin. He had an angular face, dark eyes, and a set of large, round spectacles on his face. Something in Naruto's head told him that this person was not who he seemed to be. In his years with Sasori and Deidara, many of the shinobi and kunoichi whom they had met or had been forced to work with had turned on them. They usually ended up dead or crippled. Naruto made a mental note to clap an eye on this person, who had just identified himself as Yakushi Kabuto, as he slowly ambled closer to the 9 rookies. "Is this your second attempt, Kabuto-san?" Pinky asked. "Nope. It's my 7th," Kabuto said with something akin to sheepishness in his voice. Ever perceptive, Naruto was not fooled. Kabuto had come to the exams this many times for a reason. But coming back again and again is not without its benefits. I've managed to compile a great deal of information on every nin from every country. I could give you some info if you wanted. Naruto was now intrigued. The 9 genin whom Kabuto had been speaking to did not notice Naruto's approach. "Do you have information on specific examinees?" Sasuke asked, looking quite interested. "Who did you have in mind?" Kabuto asked. Sasuke looked up, presumably to find the faces of the examinees that he wanted the dirt on. He twitched when he saw Naruto at such a close proximity, but hid it quickly. "Rock Lee and him." Naruto smirked when Sasuke had to point at Naruto because he didn't know the blonde's name. Kabuto turned around and stared at Naruto blankly for a second. "Sasuke-kun? His name is Ino" was cut off when Naruto vanished and reappeared behind Ino with a kunai across the platinum blonde's carotid artery. "Ino, if you utter so much as one syllable of my name, I will give you a hands-on lesson in art," Naruto snarled. Ino, knowing what Naruto meant by art, made a squeaking noise as Naruto released her and began to tremble. Shikamaru and Chuji were staring at Naruto with fear evident in their eyes. Kabuto had a look of comprehension dawning on his face. "Well, there's only one first-time examinee from Konoha this year that has a name starting with N," he said while pulling out a card, placing it on the ground, and transferring a small amount of chakra into it. After a moment, several statistics appeared, but there was no picture. Yuzu Kabuto was cut off as the card suddenly flew away from him and into the air, straight to Naruto's hand. Cutting the chakra string he had used, Naruto examined the card. On it, he found several pieces of information that no ordinary genin should know. Uzumaki Naruto, now known as Namikaze Naruto, son of Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage of Konoha. Vessel of the Kyubi no Yoko. Suspected member of the Sengaku mercenary group. Suspected in the disappearance of Hyuga Hayatari. Has numerous contacts among the Nuke Nin world. Using his chakra, Naruto quickly wiped the card of all of its information and handed it back to Kabuto. The spectacled genin's eyes were narrowed, along with everyone else's. Name unknown. Any other information unavailable. Kabuto read. The 9 rookies were now staring at Naruto in interest, apprehension, and in one case, envy. "He probably has no techniques," Sasuke concluded with an arrogant smirk on his face. "May I remind you, Uchiha, that it was you who almost died by my hands when you chose to fight me. And I barely had to lift a finger to bring you to the brink of death." Naruto shot back. Sasuke's smirk vanished to be replaced by a scowl. "Moving on," Kabuto said, pulling out another card. Rock Lee of Konoha. He has been a genin for 1 year, but his sensei, Mato Gai, chose to hold him and his team back until this year. He has no notable ninjutsu or genjutsu techniques, but his taijutsu is off the charts. Teammates are Hyugen Niji and Tengai Tenten. Mission history is 20 D ranks and 11 C ranks. Kabuto read off of the card bearing a picture of a genin in a green spandex suit with bug eyes, a bowl-cut hairdo and enormous eyebrows that looked like caterpillars. Naruto made a mental note to take Rock Lee, as he was called, seriously. Anyone else? No one was able to put in their requests, due to the appearance of a scarred, bear-like jounin that Naruto knew he had seen before. Flanking him were a dozen or so chunin with clipboards. Quiet down and listen up, punks. It's time for the first stage of the chunin exams. He boomed, motioning for the examinees to follow. Taking a quick peek inside of the room that they were supposed to enter, Naruto spied pencils and erasers on the multitude of desks, and a large stack of paper on the teacher's desk. Faster than almost anyone could keep up with, Naruto quickly created a Kage Bunshin and placed a genjutsu over it. He listened half-heartedly as the man, now known as Marino Ibiki, explained the rules of the exams. Any questions? Ibiki asked to silence. Very well then. Begin. You know what happens here, so I'll just skip ahead for entertainment's sake. Naruto stood alone in front of the forest of death. He hadn't needed the Kage Bunshin for the written test after all. He had been able to answer the second question, which was mathematic in nature. Learning how to create his personal poison and a subsequent cure had required many hours of mathematics and science with Sasori. It had been Mitarashi Enko who had come bursting through the window of the classroom and introduced herself as the second proctor. Naruto had clapped slowly at her entrance, while everyone else was shocked silent. Enko had scowled at him and vowed that she would get him back for humiliating her during his test. To say Sasuke and several others were burning with jealousy when they figured out that Naruto had defeated the kunoichi was a flagrant understatement. Now, in front of the looming forest, Enko could not help but glare at Naruto as she handed him a waiver stating that neither he nor his family could charge Konoha on the basis of his injury or death during the exam. Naruto signed his waiver without a second thought and went in to get his earth scroll. Without a second thought, he stuffed it deep into one of his 4 clay pouches. He readied himself when he felt 3 chakra signatures approach him. Naruto! Ino's voice called. The blonde puppet master turned to see Team 10 walking in his direction. Yes? He asked shortly, forcing himself to avoid fondling his scroll-bearing clay pouch. We were wondering if you'd like to travel with us for this exam, Ino proposed. Naruto looked at her for a moment before he shook his head. Nah. You see, if I travel and fight with you 3, that means that you didn't complete this exam on your own. Ipso ergo, your natural weaknesses will be covered by me, and so not rectified. That means that if I'm not with you on a mission as Chunin, some enemy could exploit your weaknesses and I won't be there to save you. And besides, I don't completely trust you not to run off with my scroll, Naruto explained. Shikamaru looked understanding, whereas Chuji and Ino looked rather put out as Naruto turned away to continue to his gate. Oh, and don't expect me to show you any mercy if we meet in the forest, Naruto cheerfully called back to them. 3 faces went milky white. 10 minutes later, Naruto was sitting on a clay swallow, weaving gracefully through the trees. Earlier, he had created 50 Kage Bunshins to scout the forest. One of them had dispelled about 3 minutes earlier, having been destroyed by a team from Suna. Naruto had back-flapped, he was on his bird, after all, to his entry point and followed the Kage Bunshin's trail. As he stopped in a clearing, he spotted 2 members of the Suna team he had been pursuing. The kunoichi was tending to one of the boys, who had injured his leg. The other one was nearby. He was about 10 meters to the right, crouching in the trees, watching his teammates. Silently, Naruto jumped through the air, making sure that his cloak, or he didn't brush any leaves as he homed in on the unsuspecting Suna genin. Bringing his catter back into a thrust position, Naruto brought it forwards when he slammed his feet into the boy's back. With a sick squelching sound, Naruto's blade went straight through his target's neck. The Sunanin managed to grunt before he died. Naruto quickly searched him, and managed to find a heaven scroll. Lucky him. Kira? Came a feminine voice. Naruto cursed before he jumped straight up into the foliage. As soon as he cleared the treetops, his waiting swallow swooped under him and carried him off. Naruto had been flying for about 10 minutes. The tower he was supposed to bring his 2 scrolls to was fast approaching. Naruto smirked under his straw hat. Too easy. His good mood was promptly turned sour when he felt his swallow lurch to the side. Naruto turned to see that a flying axe had cut a large gash in the right wing of his swallow. Turning backwards and snarling, Naruto spotted a team hopping through the trees below. He cursed up a storm under his breath before he jumped off of the swallow and into the trees. Ahead of him, the C1 level swallow exploded in a spectacular display of art. Naruto landed unsteadily on a large branch. He angled his mouth into a frown as the team caught up. Naruto tensed when he recognized Rock Lee among them. Accompanying Lee was a long-haired Hyuga boy who was called Naruto didn't remember his name. He looked to be about a year older than Naruto. He was wearing a short-sleeved jacket, dark shorts, and had his right arm and left leg bandaged. His lavender eyes were cold and unemotional spheres of ice. No problem that Hayatari can't solve, Naruto thought. The kunoichi of the team looked to be a little tombish. Again, Naruto drew a blank in the name archive. She wore a pink oriental shirt, dark green pants, and had a pair of large scrolls and holsters by her hips. Her chestnut eyes matched the color of her hair, which was done up in a pair of buns on the top of her head. Just by looking at the scrolls, Naruto could tell that she couldn't put up much of a fight without her weapons. "You three got guts, shooting me down like that," Naruto said to them, sliding his hand into one of his clay pouches. "We're here for your scroll. Please give it to us, and we will not have to hurt you," Rock Lee said. Shouted. Naruto smirked at Lee's audacity, but remembered that not all genin were familiar with the bingo book. "You want it so badly?" Naruto asked, making Lee's huge brows furrow. He didn't remember meeting this fellow at any time. How did he know his name? "Well, come and get it," Naruto taunted. Lee got a determined look on his face before he launched himself at Naruto with surprising speed. Lee brought his leg back and tried to kick Naruto, who suddenly expanded like a balloon at the last second and blew up spectacularly. The waves of the explosion flared out and caught Lee in them, throwing him backwards with tremendous force and searing his spandex suit in the process. "Lee!" cried the bun-haired girl as her teammate hit the branch. She crouched down to take a look at his injuries, but Lee sprung right back up as though he had simply fallen down. "Niji, where'd he go?" she asked the Hyuga, who had turned on his Byakugan and was looking around. His eyes widened. Holy was all Niji was able to say before there was a loud rustling from above. "Fox Pythire!" yelled a dozen of the same voices as about 100 Narutos came hurling out of the trees. Niji, Buns, as Naruto referred to her in his head, and Lee started to work furiously at destroying the Kage Bunshins. The zapping sounds of Juken strikes filled the air. Dozens of every conceivable weapon ever invented filled the air as Buns launched them from her scrolls. Loud cries came from Lee as he fought the clone horde one-on-one. But no matter how well they fought, the clones seemed to just keep coming. After 10 long minutes, Niji, Tenten and Lee were all panting, dirty, cut up, burned and sweaty. Their adversary had not ceased in pounding them with hundreds and hundreds of solid bunshins, Kibaku bunshins, Tsuchi bunshins, a strange bunshin that, when hit, exploded into blades of wind shaped like crescent moons, and even a couple of Mizu bunshins. And even after fighting off all of them, they could still not find their target. Niji Tenten wheezed, hands on her knees and sweat dribbling from her forehead. "Can you see him now?" Niji raised his head a margin and started to power up his eyes. "Don't bother," said a voice from nowhere. Niji's already pale skin paled even further when the cloaked boy walked out of the flesh of a tree. "Well, congratulations. You three are the first batch of shinobi under Chunin rank that have survived my billion bunshin bomb," he appraised, clapping his hands slowly. Being mocked by this person only enraged Niji. Activating his Byakugan, Niji's jaw dropped when he saw that the boy was not even out of a quarter of his chakra. "Well," Niji began, "if you're going to kill us, make it quick." The figure just stood there for a minute before chuckling and vanishing with a poofing sound. "Another bunshin!" Lee managed to exclaim very loudly, given his condition. "He must have left a while ago," Tenten exclaimed angrily. Niji could only swear under his breath. 4 long days later, the second exam had ended. Naruto had been bored off his ass, even after asking several of the Jounin and Anbu in the tower to fight him. Naruto had been victorious 4 times out of the 10 matches he'd fought, and tied one of them. At the present time, Naruto was standing alone in front of the stage in the main room with 7 other teams surrounding him. They were all listening to the Hokage explain the true purpose of the Chunin exams, and that they would have to whittle down the number of past examinees with preliminary matches. Lee's team was all glaring at him, as was Sasuke. Naruto noticed that Sasuke continually rubbed his neck and appeared to be in pain. When he removed his hand, Naruto raised his eyebrow a margin when he recognized the Ten no Juin, courtesy of Orochimaru. When they had invaded Otogekure about 4 months before Naruto came back to Konoha, the Sengoku had been forced to fight their way through dozens of ninja bearing that mark. While defeating 24 Jounin-level nin would have been something that Sasori, Deidara and Naruto could have done with their eyes closed, the task became significantly harder when their opponents morphed into a bunch of mutated freaks. Naruto also heard snatches of conversation about the seal amongst the higher-ups. They were talking about taking the Uchiha out of the program for a while the seal was dealt with. Hey idiots, here's an idea, kill him, Naruto thought. He was brought out of thinking of killing Sasuke with one of his puppets, reviving him, and killing him over and over again with every puppet he owned when Sarutobi asked if any one of the 22 examinees wished to withdraw. As Kabuto withdrew from the exam, Naruto let fly a minuscule clay fly that landed in Kabuto's hair. He would track Kabuto down later. Now that there are an uneven number of examinees, Sarutobi said, one competitor will have to fight twice. Please direct your attention to the video screen behind me to see who will be fighting twice. A large panel in the wall slid up to reveal a huge score panel. Random names began to flash across the screen very quickly until one particular name came to rest on the board in glowing yellow hiragana. Namake's Naruto. Figures I'd be the one to fight twice, Naruto thought as he rolled his eyes. Sasuke's team, a team composed of the Hyuga girl, Inuzuka Kiba, and Lee's team were all wondering who Namake's Naruto was. Team 10 was regarding him with confusion as to his surname being changed. We will now select the first round of competitors, announced a sickly jounin who had appeared when the examinees had been looking at the board. Said board began to flash through names. Haruno Sakura vs. Yamanaka Ino. The non-competing examinees retreated to the balcony to watch the match. An irate Sasuke was ushered out of the arena by Kakashi, who was promising that he would be up in time to fight. The two rivals both put on a pathetic display of fighting. Sasori would have called the display the two kunoichi put up fighting trash. The match ended in a draw when both of the girls knocked each other out with a punch. The next match pitted Kin against Kuroki Jin. Kin toyed with the unremarkable boy for a couple of minutes before sticking him with several poisoned Senbon needles. Naruto congratulated her warmly when she came back up to the balcony. He received a hug in return. Zaku was pitted against the tall boy in a large jacket on Kiba's team. Naruto was impressed to say the least when the tall boy, after being electrocuted multiple times, somehow managed to place several Kakai bugs into Zaku's wind tubes, effectively plugging them and making Zaku's arms rupture from the chakra buildup. Naruto offered Zaku his sympathies as he used several Kage Bunshins to carry the spiky-haired boy out. Dosa was pitted against the Kimichi Chuji, who he defeated in 12 seconds if Naruto's watch was correct. Dosa slapped him a high five on the way back to Kin and his sensei. Said jounin was eyeing Naruto suspiciously before he walked off. Naruto knew that there was something not right about that man with the yellow eyes, but he chose to ignore it. The next match was Tengai Tenten against Sabaka no Temari. Temari toyed with Tenten for a moment, blowing her dozens of weapons away before catching her in a vortex of wind. Tenten had fallen onto Temari's fan, and the Suna girl tossed her over her own pile of weapons when Lee caught her. The next match pitted Niji against Akado Yoroi, one of Kabuto's other teammates. Yoroi was neither strong in taijutsu nor fast, and was promptly jukened into the ground by Niji. Hyuga Hinata went against Tsurugi Misumi next. The older nin displayed a rather unusual ability of being able to dislocate his bones and stretch his body with chakra. Hinata conceded defeat with a broken arm and dislocated shoulders. Namake's Naruto vs. Sabaka no Kankuro. Naruto smirked under his hat as he walked down to the arena. Kankuro followed behind, equally as confident. Hajime. The sickly proctor called before he stepped back from the imminent massacre that he was sure Naruto would cause. Kankuro unstrapped his puppet and set it down on the floor with a thunk. I'll do you a favor, Gaki, and try to make this as painless as possible, he sneered. Sure. You can sure talk big, Kankuro, so come out of the wrappings and face me like a man, Naruto declared. Temari's eyes widened. How did this kid know that Kankuro was manipulating his puppet while disguised as the puppet? Kankuro's eyes also widened in surprise. So you figured it out, eh? He said before he freed himself from his wrappings and landed on the floor, fingers twitching in unnecessarily large motions. The original Kankuro began to fall apart like a feeble shell, revealing a wooden four-armed, three-eyed humanoid puppet with an untidy mop of chestnut hair, clad in a grayish robe. Naruto recognized the puppet immediately as one of Sasori's original creations, Karasu. And I had the gall to call you an artist. Naruto spat. Kankuro raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? He asked, lowering his hands. Anyone who embraces the noble art of puppetry is an artist in both my and my sensei's eyes. That is, of course, once they have completed the unofficial puppeteer's rite of passage, creating their own original puppet. You, Kankuro, have not completed this test by using someone else's puppet. Therefore, you cannot be considered a true artist. Naruto explained. It took Kankuro a second to register the subtle insult that Naruto had placed in his speech. His face contorted into a scowl when he had processed Naruto's words. Well, what the hell do you know? Kankuro snapped before he swung his arms, making Karasa fly directly at Naruto. The puppet clicked in the likeness of all of Naruto's puppets in battle. As Karasa swung one of its arms, Naruto ducked, knowing that a poison knife would extend from the puppet's wooden palm. And sure enough, a knife whistled through the air, missing Naruto by almost a foot. Naruto dived to the side and regained his casual composure, appearing as bored as an academy student during a history class. All the while, one of his palm mouths was casually chewing on a small wad of clay, preparing an attack. Karasa turned and fired several kunai from its mouth. Naruto casually leaned from side to side, each kunai missing him. The fact that you use such simple attacks and are only able to control a single puppet are just sickening, Kankuro. Naruto taunted/remarked, further enraging Kankuro. Shut up and fight, he shouted, redirecting Karasa to face Naruto. Gladly, Naruto replied, tossing his finished art up into the air. The tiny clay grasshopper he had crafted expanded in a puff of smoke. It barely touched the ground as it hopped towards Kankuro and Karasu. Unable to react fast enough with the amateur puppeteer at his strings, Karasu was stuck with the grasshopper. The small bomb went up in a spectacular yellow and orange flash of art, taking one of Karasu's legs, two of its arms, and part of its face with it. Kankuro looked horrified as the smoke lifted to shed light upon his ruined weapon. You lose, Kanki, Naruto stated. His smirk faltered when Kankuro pulled a scroll out of his shirt. Kankuro rolled the scroll open to reveal the kanji for spider. You'll have to take back your little declaration of me not being a real puppeteer, Gaki. Say hello to Enigmo, he said as he disappeared in a huge blast of gray smoke. As the summoning smoke lifted, Naruto took the new puppet into account. It had to be at least 2 times as tall as Kankuro, and almost 3 times as wide at the rear, if there were 3 Kankuros standing shoulder to shoulder. By a visual estimate, Naruto guessed the puppet to weigh about 100 kilograms. As the name implied, Enigmo looked like a giant spider from hell. It was midnight black, and had 8 eyes like a real spider. Looking closer, Naruto discovered that they were actually cameras so the puppeteer could see or take pictures of his or her foes for later reference. Of course, the cameras would only be used for plainly seeing the opponent if the puppet could be operated from the inside. The tip of every leg was adorned with a quartet of hooked blades on hinges, presumably for gripping surfaces, making multiple scratches or closing around a foe. There were hundreds of tiny holes in the lower legs, presumably for launching Simban or kunai at an unsuspecting enemy. The underside of the spider was festooned with blades and saws and spikes. Naruto came quickly to the conclusion that the legs were most likely spring-loaded so that the puppet could be launched into the air and brought down on an opponent to impale them with most likely highly poisonous blades. The pedipalps and fangs of the puppet were probably hollow and most likely used for spewing poisonous gas or acid. The top of the spider was probably a shield or an open chamber so that the puppeteer could hide underneath or inside of it in case of an aerial attack. Okay, I take my claim back. That is truly an impressive puppet, Kankuro, Naruto said appraisingly. Kankuro grinned a little bit. But Naruto began again, you're still just a puppet user. Whereas me, Naruto sank into the floor, and reappeared on the stage, clutching a goldenrod-colored scroll. He tossed it up into the air, where it unfurled. Naruto placed his hands in a ram's seal, and a bright glow of blue chakra began to burn around his hands. Bright yellow objects began to jump out of the scroll and fly into the air. Naruto raised his arms and extended his fingers. 10 chakra strings shot from them before splitting into 5. Each string attached to one of the now stationary yellow objects, which were now revealed to be puppets of varying size and ferocity. The one thing that they had in common was that they were all armed to the teeth. Kankuro's eyes became so large that they would surely leave his skull if his opponent did anything else. Up on the balcony, everyone's eyes widened, or their jaws fell open, or they gasped. So he was holding back the whole time when he fought me, were the thoughts of Kurenai, Anko, and Kakashi. I've heard of puppet masters before, but damn, thought Kankuro's sensei Baki. Naruto smirked at all of the attention. I'm a puppet master. Naruto finished his long drawn-out sentence. Kiroi Higi, Gojuki no Son, my own original technique and one of the strongest puppet techniques in existence. With this jutsu, I brought down a large village of shinobi and mercenaries. Naruto explained. Kankuro snapped himself out of his stupor. How? Was all he managed to squeak out. Most puppeteers can only control 10 at the best, he exclaimed. Naruto angled his mouth into a smile. Well, Kankuro, I've never been one to go with the crowd unless I have to act that way. And as for how I can control 50 puppets at once, I was trained by the greatest puppet master to ever leave Sunagakure, who coincidentally is also the puppet master that designed Kurasa there. Naruto answered. Kankuro's face went white. You were trained by Akasuna no Sasori? He yelled at the top of his lungs. Sarutobi and every other jounin in the room, as well as the Suna team, gasped or widened their eyes or let their mouths fall open as they learned the mystery of one of Naruto's Nizans being one of the most dangerous shinobi in the bingo book. Kankuro looked over to the sickly proctor. "Sir, I'd like to withdraw before this guy kills me," Kankuro quickly stammered. Naruto rolled his eyes. "Very well. As Sabaku no Kankuro has conceded defeat, Namikaze Naruto is the winner." Naruto resealed all of his puppets and placed the scroll back into his inner pocket. As Kankuro quickly sealed the Nigamo back into its scroll, Naruto walked up behind him. "Nice puppet," he whispered, making Kankuro jump. Naruto chuckled to himself before he walked casually back up to the balcony. Naruto didn't keep track of the next few matches. The only notable match was the one between Rock Lee and Sabaku no Gaara. Lee relentlessly tried to attack Gaara with taijutsu, but the demon-influenced sand of Shikaka protected the redhead. Lee finally leaped up onto the statue of the two hands and dropped his leg weights. Naruto's eyebrows raised his hat a margin when the weights created craters in the ground. Lee finally managed to hit Gaara, but only crumbled the layer of sand that Gaara kept plastered on himself. Naruto sucked in a breath when Gaara looked up and appeared to have gone as insane as he did when he used too much of the Kyuubi's power in a fight against 20 Takigakyo Oinen after he had acquired Bakemono's corpse. The result had not been pretty. Back to the match. Gaara was now pounding Lee with his sand relentlessly. After a moment or two, Lee blurred out of sight and performed to Naruto's all the fabled Omote Range. He had never seen one of those forbidden taijutsu techniques before. But now, he took in the artistic and destructive splendor of the attack Lee used on Gaara. Inside the crater on the floor, Lee stumbled out. Naruto looked inside the crater to see Gaara's body dissolve into sand. The match went to hell in a handbasket. Naruto snickered as he associated Lee's condition with the Kan for Lee from then on. Even after stepping it up and performing the Yura Range, Gaara bounced back and managed to crush Lee's arm and leg. He was about to kill Lee when their sensei, Guy, whom Lee was a carbon copy of, intervened. Unsurprisingly, Gaara was announced as the winner. It was then that Sasuke and his sensei appeared on the balcony. The seal being dealt with didn't seem to affect him. It was at that moment that the final match was decided. Namikaze Naruto vs Uchiha Sasuke. This time, Naruto simply jumped over the railing and landed on the floor. The shock that went up through his legs went ignored as he took his position in front of Sasuke. "You took me by surprise back at the academy. That won't happen again," Sasuke proclaimed. Naruto rolled his eyes. Sasuke, so arrogant as to believe that you can defeat any opponent, simply because you've got a nasty eye tick," Naruto said condescendingly. "Regardless, I'm going to pay you back for humiliating me," Sasuke spat. Naruto shook his head. "Fine then. I won't hold back at all. You will know your place, Uchiha trash," Naruto growled before he jumped back to the stage. Sasuke was barely fazed by the agility that his opponent showed. He began to get on guard when Naruto pulled a red scroll out of one of his pockets. Naruto smirked as he unraveled his elite Kagutsu scroll to the first sealing point. The kanji of the sealed puppet read 3. "This puppet was the hardest to add to my collection," Naruto said fondly, "but that's what makes him my favorite." A blue glow of chakra surrounded the kanji ring on the seal, resulting in an enormous output of smoke. Sasuke tried to activate his Sharingan as he readied himself for the oncoming assault, but the seal on his neck sent a jolt of pain through his body. Naruto could be seen through the smoke without his hat on. Sasuke took in his opponent's appearance as well as he could: blonde, spiky hair, ocean blue eyes, and 6 whisker-like marks on his cheeks. His eyes expanded when he was able to see the figure that was accompanying Naruto. The face was of a middle-aged man with light brown, almost red hair with long sideburns. His skin did not look like normal skin, but rather some varnished material. His hands looked like brownish bones. But it was what the figure was wearing that made Sasuke feel as though his chance of winning had just crumbled like an old rock face. The figure was dressed in a mostly white robe with metallic blue splotches of color on it. On the chest of the robe was the kanji for water. "No way! He can't be. That's Dash. The Sandai Mizukage." Naruto finished Sasuke's sentence for him. Up in the stands, every ninja in the room suddenly became fearful. "No way," Kakashi murmured. It was Naruto who murdered the